I used to think our house at 34 Hawthorne Street was safe, that my mom, Jessica, was just careful. My name's Max Winslow, and when I was 10, I didn't realize how fear could twist love into something that felt like a cage. Mom had always been a nurse, precise, neat, the kind of person who washed her hands twice even after wearing gloves. But after that minor car accident a few years back, something in her changed. Her fear grew teeth. She stopped going out alone, stopped trusting anyone she didn't know, and little by little, she started treating me like I was something fragile, something that could break if she blinked too long. The backyard became the only place I could breathe. Even then, it wasn't really mine. She'd chain the gate every morning, double lock it, and hover by the kitchen window, her reflection ghosting over the glass. I'd ride my bike in slow circles, pretending to explore, but I always felt her watching. Every car that passed, every neighbor who waved, every barking dog, in her mind they were all potential threats. "Don't talk to strangers, Max," she shouted one afternoon when I waved at Mr. Perkins, the mailman. Her voice shook as if the words were holding back something bigger, a panic that never left her. At first, I told myself she was just being protective, but soon her protection turned into commandments. No sleepovers, no playdates, no unsupervised calls. Anytime I tried to reach out or to have something that was mine, she saw it as betrayal. I started hiding things. Notes I wrote, sketches of the park, tiny trinkets from friends. Anything that might give her reason to question me went into secret places. Under the loose floorboard, inside my old backpack, beneath my pillow. I lived in quiet rebellion. Inside, the house smelled like antiseptic and pine cleaner, like the hospital she could never seem to leave behind. Every creak in the floor, every shadow in the hallway seemed amplified. Mom installed security cameras in the kitchen and living room. "For your safety," she said, and I learned to move quietly, whisper quietly, breathe quietly, without meaning to. I became like her, cautious, hyper-aware. The outside world started to feel enormous and dangerous, while the inside became small and suffocating. School was the only place that felt halfway free. I'd watch kids laugh, run, ride bikes with the wind in their hair. I'd imagine what it felt like to be trusted. But I knew freedom came with consequences. I tested the boundaries anyway.
Small acts.
A wave across the street, a secret note tucked into my backpack, a letter to Emily, the girl down the block. When Mom found one of my letters, her face drained of color. Her hands trembled as she held the paper. "You can't do this, Max. You don't know what could happen. People are dangerous," she whispered, voice breaking. She took the letters, slammed the closet door, and that night a new camera appeared, this one mounted above my bed. From then on, I felt its blinking red light even when my eyes were closed. Sometimes I tried to argue. "Mom, I'm not a baby. I can take care of myself." Her eyes would go wide, wet with terror. "Do you want something bad to happen to you?" Every time she asked that, something inside me froze. I learned to nod, to agree, to stay quiet. Saying no wasn't defiance, it was betrayal. At night, I'd lie awake listening to her pacing the hall, the soft scrape of her slippers across the wood floor. Sometimes she whispered to herself words I couldn't make out. Other times she'd stop outside my door, breathing shallowly as if making sure I was still there. Thunderstorms were the worst. One spring night, lightning cracked outside and I reached for my sketch pad, a small, innocent comfort. She turned on me instantly, eyes wild and full of fear. "Do you want something to happen?" she hissed. My heart thudded. I nodded, mute, learning again that agreement was safety. It wasn't just the rules that trapped me. It was the invisible weight of her fear, how it filled the air, how it seeped into me. I loved my mom. God, I did. But I was beginning to hate the way her love felt like a prison. And yet I couldn't leave. Not yet. Not when the walls themselves seemed to bend around us. Protective, suffocating, alive. Whispering her lessons in every creak and echo. By the time I turned 11, my small rebellions grew more careful, more deliberate. I wrote letters I'd never send, drew maps of the park I wasn't allowed to visit, sketched the world as it might be, open, bright, untouched by my mother's shadow. But Mom always found a way in. One afternoon, she caught a note I'd written for Emily. Her face went bone white. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Max, you can't do this. You can't." Then she tore the paper into confetti-sized pieces, her eyes glistening like I'd almost shattered something sacred. That was the day I learned survival didn't come from strength, it came from disappearing. I learned to move softly, to keep my voice low, to make myself smaller. At school, I smiled when people expected me to, laughed when I should, answered questions without revealing anything. Group projects made my stomach twist. I hated when kids leaned too close or touched my arm. I never told anyone my plans. I became precise, cautious, a version of myself that existed only in the spaces between words. Mom's protection seeped into every crack of my identity. Even when she let me outside, my joy was fractured. The swing set became a trap, the slide a warning. I could hear her stories looping in my head. Kids who vanished, dogs that mauled, strangers who waited. Adventure became a forbidden word, and yet something inside me still pushed back. I hid new letters in my closet. Took quick bike rides while Mom was distracted. Sometimes I'd peek over the fence to watch other kids play. Their laughter carried by the wind like a sound from another world. The taste of freedom was addictive, but every attempt came with the threat of discovery. Her voice would slice through the air like a blade. "Max, what are you doing?" Panic would flood me before I could even answer. My heartbeat would pound in my ears. Every escape, every stolen moment felt like walking a tightrope between hope and terror. It wasn't until middle school that someone finally noticed. My art teacher, Ms. Parker, started watching my drawings more closely. The ones filled with locked doors, barred windows, faceless people, empty streets. One afternoon, she crouched beside my desk and said softly, "These are powerful, Max. What are you trying to show?" Her voice was calm, safe. It was the first time in years I felt seen. I answered in fragments, half-truths, hesitant words about rules and fear and being watched. She listened. She didn't press, but she didn't look away either. Soon after, child services came. They spoke gently, like stepping through a minefield. For the first time, I saw my mother perform for strangers. Her smile too wide, her words sugar-sweet. "I'm just a careful parent," she told them. The world isn't safe these days. But I knew what her eyes were saying underneath that smile. "You betrayed me." For weeks, I stayed with a foster family. Their house smelled like pancakes and laundry detergent. They gave me space. I rode my bike around the block without asking. I laughed out loud. I tasted birthday cake for the first time without guilt. It was dizzying, the absence of fear. That freedom, though, came with echoes. I flinched at sudden voices. I hesitated when someone reached for my shoulder. When people smiled, I wondered what they wanted. Mom's lessons were stitched deep inside me. The world is dangerous, trust no one, stay small. Even when the locks were gone, the fear stayed. By high school, I was quieter than most. By college, I was determined to understand it. I studied psychology, not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. I wanted to map the shape of fear, to name the thing that had built itself inside me. I learned about control, about trauma, about the fine line between protection and possession. And that's when it hit me. Mom had loved me, in her way. But her love had been poisoned by fear, transformed into something that trapped instead of nurtured. Her care became surveillance. Her affection became control. Years later, I still think about that house on Hawthorne Street. The smell of cleaner, the blinking red light of the camera above my bed, her voice trembling through the walls. I don't see it as home anymore. I see it as a place where love and fear were tangled so tightly that I forgot how to breathe. But I also see what came after. Growth, healing, slow, clumsy trust. I learned that freedom isn't loud or reckless, it's quiet at first. A fragile thing you hold close until it feels safe to let it bloom. Love that isolates, that controls, that smothers with warnings. It isn't love at all. It's ownership. Real care lets you step into the world even if you might fall. It gives you the courage to try again. I still move carefully. I still listen for footsteps in empty hallways. But I live now with friends, laughter, risk, and choice. The invisible chains she left behind still rattle sometimes, but they no longer hold me. When I think back on that summer of 2024, I still can't decide whether I found the house or if the house found me. The divorce papers were barely dry that April. My hand shook as I signed my name on the final page, the sound of the pen scratching like something closing forever. Owen and I packed what little we owned into the back of my dusty Subaru and drove through the fog-draped hills of Ashwood, Oregon, until we reached 89 Pineview Crescent. It looked like a postcard, an old craftsman with white trim and a porch that wrapped around like an embrace. The realtor had left the lights on for us, warm and golden, catching the gleam of polished oak floors. I told myself this was it, a fresh start, a place where my son and I could finally breathe again. But underneath that hope was something darker. I was desperate to show Owen that I could give him a real home after his father's betrayal cracked our lives down the middle. "This house," I told him, standing in the empty living room, "is our fortress. Nothing bad can touch us here." That first night, I tucked him into his new room, the walls painted a soft blue, the air thick with that sterile scent of new beginnings. He wrinkled his nose. "It smells too clean," he whispered. I laughed it off, brushing his hair back. "That's just the varnish, sweetheart." But the word stuck in me like a splinter. In those first weeks, I threw myself into perfection. Curtains hung at symmetrical angles. Photos lined up like soldiers on the wall. I scrubbed the cabinets until my reflection blinked back from the wood. Control became my armor. If everything stayed just right, maybe nothing else would fall apart. Owen was quieter. He spent hours drawing, his pencil whispering over the paper while his eyes flicked to the corners of rooms as if expecting something to move. At first, I ignored the small things. The coffee mug left out, though I knew I'd put it away. The bathroom door that drifted open after I'd shut it tight. Houses settle, I told myself. They creak, they breathe. But at night, when the air thickened and the floorboards sighed, I could have sworn I heard faint whispers rising from the attic. I told Owen never to go up there. "It's dusty. Dangerous," I said. He just nodded. But his gaze kept wandering to the narrow pull-down ladder in the hallway ceiling. Forbidding something, I realized too late, is the same as planting curiosity like a seed. It was a rainy Thursday when I caught him in the backyard, hunched near the tree line, talking softly to himself. His sketch pad balanced on his knees. "Owen?" I called. He startled, snapping the book shut. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "No one," he said too quickly. His face was pale, lips tight. That night, after he'd gone to bed, I found his sketchbook left open on the coffee table. Page after page of dark, spindly figures stared back, tall shapes crouching in corners, their limbs stretched too long, their heads bent like they were listening. My stomach tightened. When I asked him about them the next morning, he muttered without looking up. "They wait in the attic." The certainty in his voice chilled me. I told myself it was just imagination, divorce stress, a child's way of making sense of loss. Still, I started checking the locks 3 times before bed, walking the house with a flashlight like a sentry. Each time I passed beneath the attic hatch, something heavy pressed against my chest. Then one evening, I found the front door unlocked. Panic surged through me. "Owen!" I shouted, running from room to room. No answer. The silence felt alive. Then I saw it, a faint glow spilling from the attic. My hands shook as I climbed the ladder. He was sitting there, cross-legged on the dusty board, surrounded by his toys, papers torn, eyes wide and glassy. "Owen," I whispered, kneeling beside him. "What are you doing up here?" "They won't let me sleep," he said softly, pointing toward the far corner. The shadows there seemed thicker, pulsing almost like something breathing just out of sight. For a split second, I thought I saw movement, tall shapes shifting, folding into the dark. My breath hitched. Then it was gone. "Come on," I said, forcing calm.
"Let's go downstairs." I lifted him, clutching him so tightly he squirmed.
"It's okay," I whispered, though even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. After that night, the house changed. Doors slammed, though no wind blew. Books fell. Frames cracked. I'd wake to footsteps above us, measured and slow, crossing the upstairs hall. Owen hardly slept. His drawings grew frantic, crowded scenes of the house surrounded by shadowy figures pressing in from every side. And every night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I felt it too. That quiet, watching wait, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something neither of us could name. At school, the teachers started calling more often. They said Owen seemed distracted, that he stared out the window instead of answering questions. I told them it was the divorce, that he just needed time to adjust. But deep down, I wasn't sure. There was something hollow behind his eyes lately, something that didn't feel like grief. One night, I decided to stay in his room. I wanted proof that everything was fine, that all the strange feelings were just stress and exhaustion. Around midnight, Owen stirred in his sleep. Then suddenly his eyes opened, sharp and alert, as if he'd been listening all along. "Do you hear them?" he whispered. The words made my stomach tighten. I listened. For a moment there was only rain against the window. A slow, steady rhythm. Then something else. A faint murmur. Not quite voices, not quite wind. Words I couldn't understand threaded through the sound of the rain. My skin prickled. I grabbed the flashlight and climbed the attic ladder, each creak of wood echoing in my chest. The beam sliced through darkness, catching on dust motes and broken boards. Nothing moved, but it felt like someone had just stepped out of sight. Like something had been there and slipped away the moment I looked. When I turned back, Owen was gone. I tore through the house, shouting his name until my throat burned raw. I checked the closets, the bathroom, the yard, even the street. Nothing. The house was too still, too silent. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. When I called the police, my voice shook so badly the dispatcher had to ask me to slow down. They searched the house, the woods, the whole neighborhood. No sign of forced entry, no footprints in the mud, no trace of a boy who had ever been there. They left me with nothing but questions and that look, the kind that says they think the problem isn't outside the house but inside me. Days blurred into weeks. I stopped showing up for work, missed deadlines, let calls go unanswered. Friends came once or twice, but the way they looked at me, at the dark circles under my eyes, the shaking hands, told me they wouldn't come again. The house wouldn't let me rest. Every night I heard footsteps in the hallway. Light, quick ones. Owen's. I'd rush to his room, throw open the door, whispering, "Please, please be there." But the bed was always empty. Sometimes I heard him calling from above. "Mom!" Just that soft pleading. I'd scramble up the ladder, heart racing, only to find the same dusty boards, the same corner that seemed to pulse with shadows that bent and breathed. A neighbor mentioned him once, casually over the fence. "Saw a boy in the woods last night," he said, sipping his coffee. "Looked like your son." The world tilted. I couldn't remember the night Owen disappeared. Had I really been there with him? Had the attic light been on? Or had I dreamed it? My memories felt like water slipping through my hands, warm, real, and gone the moment I tried to hold them. In the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. My eyes looked wild, my hair tangled, my skin pale and tight around my bones. Sometimes I wondered if Owen had ever existed at all. Maybe I had built him out of loneliness and fear. Maybe my mind, already cracked from betrayal and sleepless nights, had conjured a child just so I wouldn't be alone. But then I'd open his sketchbook, pages full of those tall, spindly figures crouched in corners, and I'd know he was real. Once. By autumn, the house had devoured me whole. Every creak was a footstep, every whisper a name. I stopped leaving entirely. Bills piled at the door. Work emails went unanswered. I drifted through the rooms, whispering for Owen, waiting for a reply that never came. Sometimes I heard him laugh, light and distant, echoing down the hall. Once I thought I saw him standing at the end of it just for a second, his face pale in the half-light before the dark folded over him again. I went to the attic one last time. Sat there for hours, dust clinging to my clothes, the air heavy as sleep. "Give him back," I whispered. "Take me instead." My voice cracked. I would have given anything for a sound, a sign, something. But only the house answered, groaning softly, wood shifting, the wind brushing through the eaves like a sigh. Now, months later, I don't know where the truth ends. Maybe Owen was taken. Maybe he ran. Maybe he never existed outside the walls of my unraveling mind. But the attic still waits. It always waits. Some nights, when the wind moves through the trees, I swear I hear a boy's laughter drift from the woods. I press my hand to the glass, heart aching with a mix of hope and dread. Maybe he's out there. Maybe he's gone. Maybe I've been chasing echoes all along. But the house, our perfect shining fortress, has teeth. It keeps what it claims, and I think it still holds us both. Because sometimes the most dangerous hauntings don't come from the shadows around us, but from the ones we carry inside. Fear, guilt, the illusion of control. They whisper until love turns to obsession, and memory rots into madness, and in the quiet that follows. I used to think my family was perfect. That's the cruel trick of childhood. How the walls you grow up inside feel like a fortress even when they're quietly collapsing. I remember our house in Aberdeen under winter skies. Tall gray stone walls slick with rain, windows glowing gold against the cold. To everyone else, we were respectable. A lawyer father, a mother who baked bread that made the whole street smell like heaven, and a daughter who smiled politely every Sunday at church. People envied us. They didn't know. My father, Robert Morton, was a drinker, not the friendly kind who sang pub songs, but the kind who turned liquor into fuel for fury. I learned early to recognize the rhythm of his footsteps, that dangerous quiet before he exploded. Sometimes he threw things, sometimes his hand found my arm or cheek. The bruises were never obvious. He was careful like that. My mother, Margaret, never stopped him. She prayed instead, whispering scripture like it could hold back his fists. The night he was arrested, I was 17. He'd attacked another man at the pub, swinging wild until the police pulled him off. I remember watching them drag him away, sirens flashing across our walls, thinking, maybe this was freedom. He was gone, locked up. Just Mom and me now. I wanted to breathe again, to believe we could start over. And for a while I did. She seemed strong at first. Eliza, she told me, we'll be all right. God doesn't break families unless he plans to rebuild them stronger. Her chin lifted, voice steady. She took over the bills, smiled for the neighbors, walked into church beside me like a survivor. But the cracks showed fast. She stopped sleeping. I'd wake to find her scrubbing the floor at 2 a.m, humming hymns through clenched teeth. She locked the front door with 3 deadbolts, muttering about keeping demons out. I told myself it was stress, but something in her eyes had changed. Mom, I whispered one night when I found her polishing silverware, her hands red and raw. You don't have to do this. She didn't look up. If I don't, who will? You think anyone cares about us, Eliza? You think God will do it all for us? Her words chilled me. That wasn't the woman who used to braid my hair before school. I didn't understand then how love could sour into something else, how grief could ferment into madness. By the winter of 1998, I was losing her. By spring, the house felt like a cage. I buried myself in schoolwork, sketching buildings, dreaming of designing houses one day, places that kept people safe instead of trapping them. But every time I spread my notebooks across the kitchen table, Mom's eyes lingered too long. One evening, she stared at a sketch of a glass tower. False kingdoms, she muttered. What? I asked. God doesn't want us building towers to the sky. That's pride, Eliza, that's sin. I laughed nervously. It's just homework, Mom, not the Tower of Babel. Her hand slammed the table. My pencils jumped. Don't mock me. Don't you dare mock the word of God. I froze. She'd never yelled at me before. That night I found my sketchbook burning in the fireplace, pages curling into black ash. A few days later, Hannah, my best friend since primary school, came over wearing a red scarf her grandmother had knitted. Mom's smile vanished the instant she saw it. Take that off, she snapped. Hannah blinked. Excuse me? Red is the devil's color. You won't bring curses into this house. Mom, I hissed, it's just a scarf. Her eyes glittered. She won't step foot here again. She's plotting against us. Hannah left in tears. I stood trembling, humiliation burning through me. You're losing it, I whispered. Her hand flew before I could flinch. The slap cracked across my cheek, sharp personal final. I'd felt my father's blows before, but this one broke something deeper. Later that night, she knelt by her bed, rocking and praying, while I touched the sting on my face and realized my mother was slipping somewhere I couldn't reach. The neighbors began to whisper. Small things at first, Mom shouting at Mrs. Callahan about the gas bill, slapping another neighbor who offered help. Then came the boiling water. 2 officers at the door, calm voices, gentle words. Mom threw scalding water toward them, screaming, You're Satan's soldiers. I'll never forget the way the officers looked at me afterward, pity flickering behind their eyes, tangled with unease. One of them said softly, She needs help, miss. But you can't force her unless she's a danger to herself or others. She is a danger, I cried. Can't you see that? But paperwork, procedure, bureaucracy, everything moved slower than her madness. At night she wandered the hall whispering prayers, fingers grazing the locks on my door. I'd lie there with my heart pounding, waiting for the moment the whispering would stop. Because silence meant something worse was coming. One morning I tried reason. Mom, please, People are worried. I'm worried. You need rest. Maybe talk to a doctor. Her eyes flared. You think I'm crazy? You think I don't see what they're doing? They want to tear us apart. They want to steal my angel. I'm not your angel, I whispered. I'm your daughter, and I'm scared. For a heartbeat, her face softened. Fragile, human again. Then she turned away, locking herself in the bathroom for hours, chanting until her voice went hoarse. The house stopped smelling like bread. It smelled of bleach and burnt paper. It sounded like locks snapping shut. It felt like love buried alive under fear. When the social workers came, I thought salvation had arrived. They sat across from me at the kitchen table, pens scratching, voices gentle. One woman said, Eliza, if your mother doesn't accept treatment, we may have to consider foster care just until she gets better. Foster care? The words lodged in my throat. I was almost grown, but leaving my room, my sketches, even those haunted walls, felt like losing the last scrap of home. Can't you just help her? I begged. They tried. But Mom refused. She screamed scripture at them, called them agents of the devil. I watched her toss their pamphlets into the fire, her face glowing with feverish triumph. That night, I heard her pacing outside my door again. I pressed my back to the wood, clutching the kitchen knife I'd hidden under my pillow. Her shadow swayed beneath the crack of light. She muttered prayers about purity, obedience, sacrifice. I bit down on my tongue to keep from making a sound. The next morning, she cornered me in the kitchen. If you ever betray me to them, Eliza, if you ever let them take me away, God will punish you. Do you hear me? Her voice was sharp, but her hands trembled. For the first time, I saw fear in her, not of me, but of losing control, of herself. Mom, I whispered, tears stinging. I just want you back. She turned her face away. Back is gone, she murmured. Only forward. Only God. The end came sudden, violent, inevitable. One night her screams jolted the neighbors awake. They called the police. By the time the officers broke down the door, she was hurling dishes at shadows only she could see. Her voice was raw from shouting about demons crawling through the walls. I stood frozen in the corner as they restrained her. She clawed at them, snarling prayers. Her face twisted into something I barely recognized. For a moment our eyes met. There was no hate, no recognition, just a vast, hollow emptiness that shattered me more than any slap ever had. They took her to a psychiatric facility under an emergency order. The medication quieted her storms, softened her edges. The doctors said she might recover in time. But I knew there was no going back. I visited sometimes. She'd smile, calm, polite, almost normal. But every time I saw it, I waited for that smile to crack, for the madness to peek through again. I left Aberdeen for university with scars no one could see. On the outside, I seemed fine. But at night, I still heard footsteps in empty halls, locks clicking, prayers whispered through the dark. I remembered the woman who baked bread, the woman with wild eyes. And I understood. Love can twist, safety can rot, and family can betray. Madness doesn't always come from the dark outside. Sometimes it grows quietly inside the people we trust most. Appearances deceive. Silence can destroy. And survival sometimes means letting go of the ones you ache to save. Trust is sacred, but it should never blind you to danger, even when it wears the face of home. I used to believe my mother was the strongest woman in the world. Caroline Turner wasn't like the other moms in Portland, Maine. She didn't pack tidy lunches with handwritten notes or spend Saturday mornings at bake sales. She wasn't steady like that. She was more like the ocean that crashed against the rocky shore near our house, beautiful, wild, and unpredictable. Before I was born, she'd been a singer at a smoky bar downtown. Her voice husky, her dresses tight, her lipstick always a little too red. She told me she gave it all up when my father left, said raising me was her greatest performance. It's just you and me, Soph, she'd whisper, pulling me close, her perfume sharp and sweet. No one else matters. I didn't understand then that sometimes she meant it as love, and sometimes as a warning. By the time I was 11, I had learned to watch her moods like weather patterns. If her smile was too wide, if her eyes darted too quickly, if she started humming those old songs under her breath, I knew a storm was coming. One wrong word and she'd snap. Not always with her hands. Sometimes her voice was enough. Ungrateful, she'd hiss. Don't make me regret giving up everything for you. That rainy October night in 2005, I sat in the back seat of her Buick, tapping my sneakers against the floorboard. The car smelled faintly of cigarettes, though she always swore she'd quit. The wipers screeched across the glass, fighting the downpour. We'd pulled into a dying strip mall, half the stores boarded up, a single streetlight buzzing above the ATM. Mom grabbed her purse and stepped out into the rain. I watched her, half afraid she'd just disappear into it. That's when I saw him. A man standing near the alley, hood pulled low, shoulders hunched. He wasn't loitering. He was watching. "Mom," I whispered, leaning forward, tugging her sleeve before she opened the door. "He's staring at you." She laughed softly, the way she did when she wanted to erase my fear. "Don't be silly, Sophie. People look. That's what they do." But my stomach nodded. His eyes were sharp, darting. The air felt heavier. She strode toward the ATM unbothered while I pressed my face to the window, heart pounding. Then it happened, so fast it felt like a dream I'd already had. The man lunged, slamming her against the concrete, yanking her purse. Her scream was swallowed by the storm. I stumbled out of the car, yelling, "Leave her alone!" He turned on me, his rough hands gripping my shoulders. "Shut up or she dies," he growled. I froze. My body trembled, tears blurring my vision. Before he could drag me farther, my mother erupted. Not with fear, but something feral. She clawed at his arm, shrieking, "Don't touch what's mine!" He flinched, startled by her fury, and bolted into the rain, vanishing down the alley. Mom collapsed onto the wet pavement, breathing hard, her eyes burning with something that scared me even more than the man had. People ran over. Someone wrapped a blanket around me. Someone called 911. But when the police arrived, Mom's words tumbled out in frantic bursts, accusing them of being in on it, accusing me of unlocking the door. Her voice shook, her thoughts tangled. She looked at me like I was part of the threat. That night, I stopped believing my mother was the strongest woman in the world. That night, I started wondering if she was the most dangerous. The days after blurred together. Everyone at school asked what happened. I gave them the short version. Some guy tried to rob us, but we're fine now. The truth was too heavy. Mom wasn't fine. She stopped sleeping, pacing the house all night, peeking through the blinds every few minutes. Then came the locks, padlocks on every door. One for the basement, one on my bedroom door. "Just in case," she said with a thin smile. Next came the mirrors. She covered them with sheets, muttering about eyes watching from the glass. Once I tried to uncover the bathroom mirror to brush my hair. She caught me. Her fingers clamped my wrist so hard her nails left crescents in my skin. "Do you want them to see us?" she hissed. I didn't ask who they were. I knew better. Then came the drills. Safety drills, she called them, pretending it was a game. She'd shove me into the closet, padlock it, and tell me to stay silent until she opened it again. Sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. I'd sit in the dark, knees pulled to my chest, biting my sleeve to muffle my sobs. "Better you hate me now than get taken later," she'd say when she finally let me out. At school, I jumped at footsteps in the hall, flinched at raised voices. Friends stopped calling. One afternoon, my teacher noticed the bruises on my wrist. I mumbled something about tripping, but she didn't buy it. The next week, social services came. I remember the day they took me like it was yesterday. A woman with kind eyes and a clipboard came into the classroom. She knelt beside my desk and whispered, "Sophie, we're going to take a little trip." My stomach dropped. I wanted to scream, to cling to the desk to make her leave me there. But something inside me also exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for years. They brought me to a foster family, the Millers. Their house smelled like cinnamon and laundry detergent. They gave me a soft bed, tucked me in with a quilt, and asked what my favorite breakfast was. For the first time in so long, warmth didn't come with strings attached. But peace never lasted where my mom was concerned. She fought in court, sobbing on the witness stand, telling the judge how much she loved me. She painted herself as a victim of trauma, a mother who'd only tried to protect her daughter from a cruel world. After therapy and medication, they granted her supervised visits. We sat across from each other in sterile rooms that smelled of disinfectant. Her smile stretched too wide. "You know they can't keep us apart forever," she whispered once, eyes gleaming. "It's you and me, Soph, always." I nodded because that's what she needed. But inside I was beginning to understand. Sometimes the person you're supposed to run to is the one you need to escape from. The visits started once a week. Mom would show up with cookies she swore she'd baked, though they were clearly store-bought. She'd hug me too tightly, her perfume clinging to my clothes. "Don't listen to them," she'd whisper. "They just want to keep us apart." The supervisor smiled politely, never noticing the sharpness in her words, the way her hands trembled. To them, she was just a heartbroken mother. To me, she was a storm waiting to break. One afternoon during a visit, she leaned close and murmured, "You think they'll protect you? They can't, no one can. It's only me." I stared at the table, tracing the scratches in the wood, pretending not to hear. Her hand slammed down, the sound cracking through the room. The supervisor jumped. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," she snapped, then forced a smile. "Sorry, I miss her so much." I knew the act by heart. At the Millers, I tried to fit into normal life. Mrs. Miller taught me how to bake banana bread, laughing when I spilled flour. Mr. Miller held the back of my bike seat until I stopped wobbling. Their daughter Claire invited me to sleepovers, painted my nails, braided my hair. For a while I let myself believe I belonged there, but my mom's shadow always followed. One night the phone rang. Mrs. Miller answered, her brow furrowed. She handed it to me gently. "It's your mom." My hand shook as I pressed the receiver to my ear. "Hi," I whispered. "They can't keep you forever," she said, voice low and urgent. "Pack a bag." "I'll come get you." "I can't," I whispered. Her breath hitched, then turned sharp. "Ungrateful. After everything I've done for you, you'd rather live with strangers than your own mother?" I hung up. Tears burned my eyes. Mrs. Miller wrapped her arms around me, but guilt pressed down like a weight. I loved my mother. I was terrified of her. At school, I started therapy. The counselor asked me to draw how I felt. I drew a house with padlocks on every door. "Who's inside?" she asked softly. "Me," I whispered. Her eyes softened. "Do you want to get out?" I didn't answer. I didn't know if I could. The older I got, the sharper the memories became. That night at the ATM played over and over, not the man, but my mother's face. The wildness in her eyes, the way she screamed, not in fear but fury. I realized the real terror hadn't come from outside. It had always lived inside her. Even as a teenager, she haunted me. She sent letters from therapy, each one swinging between love and accusation. "I'm proud of you, Soph," one would say, followed by, "Don't let them poison you against me." I'd tear them up, but her words stayed like splinters under my skin. When I turned 16, the court gave me a choice: stay with the Millers permanently or try reunification with my mom. I didn't hesitate. I chose the Millers. Mom screamed in the courtroom, her voice echoing. "She's mine! You can't steal her!" The gavel struck, but her words stayed in my head for years. I graduated, went to college out of state, tried to build a normal life. But fear lingered. I flinched in parking lots, double-checked my locks, avoided mirrors at night. When friends asked, "Why are you so jumpy?" I just shrugged. How could I tell them that my mother's love felt like a cage? Now as an adult, I see it clearly. My mother wasn't a monster, not always. She tucked me in at night, sang lullabies, brushed my hair when I was sick. But love twisted by paranoia and control becomes something else. Sometimes I visit Portland, though I don't see her. She's older now, quieter, the fire dimmed by years of medication. I hear she lives in a group home, still muttering about conspiracies. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks of me, if she regrets the storm she brought into my childhood. I'll never know. But I do know this. The night of the mugging, when she screamed like an animal and saved me, was also the night she showed me the truth. The danger wasn't strangers in alleys. It was trusting someone who couldn't tell where love ended and control began. Fear doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it lives in the people we love most. Trust has to be earned, not demanded. And no matter how deep the bond of blood runs, it's never wrong to walk away when love becomes a prison. I remember the first time I realized my life wasn't normal, though back then I thought it was. I was 8 years old, standing on a narrow stage somewhere in Los Angeles. The spotlights were so bright they made the sweat on my forehead shimmer like tiny diamonds. My chest rose and fell too fast. The crowd wasn't cheering for me, they were cheering for her dream. Veronica Weiss, my mother, had once been an actress, a Hollywood hopeful with 2 high heels and 2 enormous ambitions, but the industry had spat her out. leaving her with little more than bitterness and a burning promise. If she couldn't shine, then I would. "Lift your chin, Clara," she hissed from the front row, her voice slicing through the music like a blade. "Do you want to look like a rag doll again?" My smile tightened. I tried. I forced my lips into a grin that felt more like a scream. My body trembled from exhaustion, my sequined dress pinching at places I didn't even know could hurt. To the audience, I looked like a confident little girl twirling under the lights. But inside, I felt like a marionette, pulled by invisible strings dancing inside a cage I didn't understand. My father had left years before. Mom said he was weak. "He didn't believe in your talent," she told me with a mixture of disgust and pity. When I was 6, I thought he was a coward. By 8, I realized he'd just escaped first. Home wasn't really home. It was a fortress built from her rules and my fear. Mirrors covered every wall so I could see my progress. Shoes had to be worn even when my feet throbbed. Meals were weighed to the calorie. I wasn't allowed to slouch, frown, or even breathe wrong. "Pain makes you perfect," she'd snap if I winced. "Stars don't get messy, Clara. They shine." She paced behind me during practice, correcting every motion, posture, smile, even the rhythm of my breathing. At night, she'd stand behind me as I brushed my hair, her reflection towering over mine in the mirror. "Remember, they're always watching," she'd whisper. I learned quickly that dreams were dangerous. When she found the notebook I kept hidden under my bed, filled with sketches of buildings, bridges, and quiet places where no one clapped, she tore it apart. "Stop wasting time with childish fantasies," she said, her voice trembling with fury. "You were born to be seen, not to build." I told myself someday she'd see me for who I was, not what she wanted me to be. But hope was just another performance. By the time I turned 12, my childhood had been carved away, piece by piece. Birthdays were replaced with rehearsals. Sleepovers were distractions. Cake was poison. Every night I'd lie in bed listening to the sound of her typing, fast, frantic on her laptop, or muttering to herself in the kitchen. I never moved. I never coughed. Even the floorboards learned to hold their breath. One afternoon at school, a classmate named Lila asked, "Hey, Clara, you want to come to the movies this weekend?" Her voice was casual, kind. I froze, my throat tightened. I didn't know how to say yes without inviting hell. I have homework," I stammered, eyes dropping to the floor. "Oh," she said, frowning. "Maybe next time?" I nodded, but there was never a next time. That night, Mom stared at me across the dinner table, eyes narrow, smile fixed. "You smiled too long at the wrong person today," she said softly, brushing her fingers along my cheek like a surgeon examining a wound. "Remember, every gesture counts. Every flaw is a disaster waiting to happen." I hated her for it sometimes. Other times I hated myself for being too weak to stop her. She had built her life around my performance and mine around her approval. I didn't want to be a model. I wanted to be an architect, to design something that stood still and silent, not something that had to sparkle on command. But in our world, silence was failure and applause was oxygen. The competitions began to feel like battlefields. Every time I stepped onto a stage, I could hear her voice whispering inside my head. "Sharp and relentless, smile wider. Clara, don't disappoint me." The applause always came, but it never felt like victory. Each round of cheers sounded like nails against a coffin lid. Every trophy she placed on the shelf felt heavier than the last, and every smile I gave the world felt like another piece of me being buried alive. At 14, everything got worse. The regional competitions were brutal. Long rehearsals, endless posing, forced smiles until my cheeks ached. My days were a blur of calorie counts, mirror drills, and Mom's voice drilling into my skull like a metronome. Again, shoulders back. Smile softer. No, not like that. She was everywhere, counting every step, every breath, every word that came out of my mouth. Then came Malene. She was everything Mom wanted me to be. Graceful, confident, dazzling under the lights. She didn't flinch when the judges stared. She didn't tremble. She sparkled. I lost to her that day. Backstage, mascara burning my eyes, I whispered, "Maybe I'm just not good enough." Mom knelt beside me, wrapping her arms around my trembling shoulders. "You are good enough," she murmured into my hair. "Don't forget that, Clara, we're unstoppable." Her voice was soft, almost tender, but something in her tone felt like a warning. The next morning, everything changed. Malene collapsed in her hotel room. Dead. Rumors spread fast, whispers of poison, jealousy, sabotage. I remember sitting on the hotel bed, my stomach hollow, while sunlight spilled through the curtains, slicing the room in gold and shadow. That's when I saw it, the small vial in Mom's open purse. Crushed white pills glittered faintly under the light. "Mom," I said, my voice breaking, "what did you do?" She didn't even blink. She just smiled, calm and terrifyingly certain. "I removed the obstacle. One day you'll thank me." My throat closed. I wanted to scream, to run, to tell someone, but all I could do was stare. Every trophy, every smile, every ounce of applause suddenly felt soaked in blood. After that, I tried to tell people. A teacher. A social worker. Even a judge once during a custody check. But Mom was brilliant. She could cry on cue, twist words into ribbons of pity. "She's just under pressure," she'd say, brushing my hair like I was a porcelain doll. "I'm doing everything I can for her. You know how competitive the industry is." They always believed her. Everyone did. Behind closed doors, I grew smaller. She never hit me. She didn't have to. Her voice did the damage, sharp, cold, relentless. I stopped eating. I stopped looking at myself. At night, she'd sit at the foot of my bed, stroking my ankle with her long, cold fingers. "We're unstoppable," she'd whisper. "You and I, don't betray me." I would nod, eyes wide open, too terrified to move. I learned early that survival meant silence. Even school felt like another stage. Teachers commented on my discipline, my dedication. They didn't see the tremor in my hands or the way my smile cracked under fluorescent lights. My classmates invited me out, ice cream, birthdays, study groups, but I always said no. "I have practice. My mom's waiting. Maybe next time." There was never a next time. The cage wasn't made of bars. It was made of expectations. Invisible but unbreakable. Years passed before I finally found a way out. At 18, I got a scholarship for architecture. A miracle, really, and used it like a lifeline. I packed a single suitcase and left before dawn. Mom's calls came daily at first. "Don't forget who made you," she'd sneer when I didn't answer right away. "You're nothing without me." I blocked her number, deleted her messages. I left the mirror-lined apartment behind and never looked back. College was the first place that felt real. I could breathe there. I could draw again. I'd sit by the studio window sketching buildings with open spaces and sunlight streaming through wide, clean glass. No reflections, no watchers. Just air and light. Still, the ghosts lingered. Loud applause makes me flinch. A voice behind me, especially a woman's, can make my chest tighten. When someone says perfect, my pulse stutters. But I've learned. I've healed mostly. I built a life that belongs to me. I found therapy, real friends, a sense of safety I never knew existed. I learned that ambition without love is just cruelty dressed in glitter. My mother's obsession nearly destroyed me, but it also taught me something precious. How to build, not perform. How to stand in light without being consumed by it. Ambition should never demand your soul. Love should never feel like a leash. And no amount of applause, no trophy, no title in the world is worth the quiet death of a child's spirit. My name is Samantha Dio, and I grew up in a weathered colonial house at 12 Bramblewood Lane in Ashford, Maine, where the scent of polished mahogany always tangled with the sharp breath of sea salt from the bay. The floors creaked like old bones, and the windows whistled when the wind turned from the shore. My mother, Evelyn, was the kind of woman people admired without ever really knowing. She ran an antique shop downtown, Evelyn's Finds, and everyone in town praised her taste, her grace, her impossible ability to turn decay into beauty. But what they didn't see was the precision behind her charm. She lived by rules, by labels, by control. Every inch of our house was her reflection, tidy, deliberate, staged. And over time, I realized so was I. When I was 12, I started noticing the pattern. She labeled everything, everything. Drawers, pantry shelves, even the sugar jar. My notebooks had colored tabs she'd made herself. Math, science, chores, behavior. She said it helped keep the chaos out. At first, I thought it was harmless. I'd laugh when she caught me rolling my eyes. "Someday you'll thank me, Sam," she'd say with that practiced smile. Order keeps us safe. But at night, the house didn't feel safe. I'd lie awake listening to faint movements, floorboards groaning under invisible weight, something dragging, a whisper that slid through the walls like a sigh. It always came from the locked room on the second floor, the one I wasn't allowed to enter. Whenever I asked about it, Mom would barely look up from her tea. "The wind, Samantha," she'd say lightly. "Old houses settle, that's all." I wanted to believe her. God, I really did. But that door, it felt alive, like it was listening. So I started paying closer attention. A vase would move slightly to the left. My school notes, gone from my desk one day, returned the next with a faint coffee stain, photos on the hallway wall that seemed to shift angles overnight, as though someone had been staring too long and forgot where they'd been placed. It was subtle at first, but I began to feel something off, like my life was being curated. During the day, I played my part. I joked with friends, smiled in class, nodded when teachers praised my handwriting. But coming home felt like stepping into a stage set built for someone else's performance. Mom always knew where I'd been, what I'd said, even things I hadn't told her. Her voice would float through the house, calm and melodic. "You shouldn't keep secrets from me, sweetheart. Secrets cause clutter. Clutter. That was her word for everything she couldn't control. By the time I turned 14, the air between us was suffocating. I hid my diary in the lining of my backpack. I whispered to myself only in the shower, where the sound of running water might drown me out. I stopped locking the bathroom door because she'd just find a reason to remove it. Every small act of rebellion, writing a private thought, leaving a cup in the sink, became a quiet war. And she always won. Until one rainy Thursday. The house was still, the sky a bruise-colored haze pressing against the windows. Mom had gone to the antique fair in Portland. I stood in the hallway staring at the locked room's door, its brass handle catching a dull glint of light. The air felt colder there, like the walls exhaled. My heart hammered as I reached into the drawer by the stairs, where Mom kept the keys in a neat labeled tray. Attic, basement, office, second room. The brass key was heavier than I expected. My fingers trembled as I fitted into the lock. Click. The sound echoed through the hallway like a verdict. When I pushed the door open, the smell hit me first, dust, paper, a faint sweetness like decayed flowers. The curtains were drawn, letting in only a thin gray light. Inside, everything was terrifyingly tidy. Shelves lined the walls, filled with journals, hundreds of them, stacked and labeled in my mother's delicate script. Samantha, age 5. Samantha, school year. 7. Samantha, social behavior. Summer. My stomach turned. I picked one up, the leather cover soft from use. When I opened it, my name stared back at me in her handwriting. Every page was filled with entries. Conversations, incidents, dates, every moment of my life documented in obsessive, minute detail. Samantha lied about finishing homework. Confronted her gently. Tears followed. Samantha looked distracted today, possible defiance. Samantha spoke with Mrs. Klein after class. Investigate why. Some pages described things that never happened. Memories she'd rewritten. Events twisted until they felt like something out of her imagination. She'd even recorded moments I didn't remember living. I snapped the journal shut, hands shaking, but curiosity isn't something you can bury once it's awake. From that day, I started watching her instead. How she'd move through the house, rearranging objects by millimeters. How she'd glance at my phone, then later act as if she already knew what I'd texted. How emails disappeared. She wasn't just controlling the house, she was controlling the narrative. And somewhere deep down, I began to understand. My mother wasn't preserving order. She was rewriting reality. One labeled drawer. One altered memory, one falsified journal at a time. I felt like I was living inside a maze made of mirrors. Every reflection slightly off. Every memory warped just enough to make me question myself. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. I'd walk through the halls of that house and feel as though even the air had been edited. My own life no longer belonged to me. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. It was a late winter night. The wind outside was rattling the windows and the old pipes hissed like the house was whispering secrets. Mom sat at the kitchen table, tea steaming beside her. Her hands folded neatly, nails painted the color of bone. I stood across from her, my heart pounding so hard it made my vision shake. "Mom," I said, my voice breaking despite the effort to steady it. "Why are you rewriting everything? Why do you do this?" She looked up at me slowly, like she'd been expecting the question for years. Her eyes softened. "To protect you, darling," she said gently. "To keep our world safe." I swallowed hard. Safe from what? From chaos. From pain. Her tone was serene, her smile faint. "Some people can't handle the truth, Samantha. The truth is cruel. I just make it kinder." Her words were supposed to sound like love, but they landed like ice. I stood there watching her sip her tea, steady and graceful as if she hadn't just confessed to rewriting my entire life. That night, something inside me cracked. The person I had trusted most, the one who'd taught me how to tie my shoes, how to smile for the camera, how to keep order, had also been the architect of my confusion. From then on, I started documenting everything. I kept a small notebook hidden beneath a loose floorboard in my room. Every night I'd write down every detail of the day, the exact words spoken, the expressions on faces, even the weather. I recorded voice memos on my phone labeled with dates and times. I became my own archivist, desperate to preserve something untouched by her hands. Every interaction became a test. When she'd say, "You didn't tell me about that test," I'd flip through my notes later to prove that I had. When she'd insist, "You were angry with me yesterday," I'd listen back to the recording and hear only calm. But even with evidence, doubt crept in. What if I was the one remembering wrong? What if I was the one twisting things? That's how it worked. Her control didn't need chains. It used uncertainty. Sleep became rare. Every creak of the floorboards felt like her footsteps. Every whisper of wind outside the window felt like her voice. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was standing just outside my door, rewriting my night in her mind. High school became my only escape, a strange blend of freedom and paranoia. Between classes and after-school clubs, I felt almost normal. I worked part-time at a bookstore, stacking shelves just to feel like I had some say over what stayed where. But even then, I'd catch myself checking. Had anyone moved my things? Had anyone rewritten my day? I became hyper-aware, trained to observe every flicker of change. My survival depended on it. Eventually, I realized there was only one way out: leaving. When I got accepted to a college 2 states away, I told her with a trembling smile. She nodded, lips pressed tight as though she already knew. "It's good to see you taking initiative," she said softly. "You'll need that skill when you're on your own." The first night in my dorm, I sat on the bare mattress surrounded by unpacked boxes, the fluorescent light humming faintly. For the first time, I could breathe without feeling observed. I unpacked books, arranged them how I wanted, and left a cup on the desk overnight just to see it still there in the morning. It was freedom. And it was terrifying. The silence felt wrong at first, like something was missing. But slowly, I began to realize what that something was: her control. The air felt different without it. Heavier but more honest. I could walk out without explaining myself, laugh without documenting the moment, exist without an audience. Still, the ghosts of Bramblewood Lane followed me. The locked room, the scent of polished wood and paper, the rows of journals, each one a distorted reflection of me. Sometimes, even now, years later, I'll hear a floorboard creak in my apartment and my stomach will tighten before I remind myself I'm alone. Certain sounds, rustling paper, the soft click of a lock, send a jolt through me. But I've learned to live with that. It's part of the residue, the scar tissue left behind by her obsession. I've learned to rebuild trust, though carefully. I listen more than I speak. I watch people's eyes, their tone, the rhythm of their words. I let trust earn its place, not assume it. The world beyond that house is vast and messy and unpredictable, but it's real. And I've learned that reality, even when it hurts, is better than a beautiful lie. Leaving wasn't just about moving away. It was about reclaiming my own mind, the right to remember, to believe, to be wrong, to be real. Now when I look back, I understand the difference between protection and control, between care and possession. What she called love was really fear. Fear of losing grip, fear of chaos, fear of truth. Freedom, I've realized, isn't the absence of walls. It's the ability to trust the world without someone else scripting it for you. And the most haunting part? Sometimes I still write things down, not because I'm afraid she'll change them, but because I need to prove to myself that I'm the one holding the pen now. I'd always known my mother was intense, but I never understood that intense could also mean terrifying. My name is Vivian Cole, and I was 17 then, living in a weathered Victorian house on Maple Hollow Road, up in the gray quiet of Vermont. The kind of place that always smelled faintly of wood polish and cold air. My mother, Eleanor Cole, was known in town for her composure. People said she was elegant, even otherworldly. They didn't see what I saw. The way her reflection lingered in the mirror after she turned away. The way her hands trembled when a picture frame sat half an inch crooked. She had a ritualistic sort of perfection about her. Hair in tight curls, nails always spotless. She would rearrange furniture for hours, scrubbing and polishing until the whole house felt sterile, like it was afraid to breathe wrong around her. Sometimes I'd find her whispering while she cleaned the basement, her lips moving in tiny secret prayers. When I asked what she was saying, she'd just smile faintly and say, "Just talking to the dust." I told myself it was harmless, that every family had their quirks, that the unease that pressed into my ribs whenever I watched her wasn't fear, just misunderstanding. But deep down I knew something was wrong. It was February 2018. Snowflakes floated like ash through the air, spinning down onto the old iron fence outside. I had just returned from a weekend at my dad's cabin, a small reprieve from the tension that lived in our walls. When I stepped out of the taxi and trudged up the drive with my backpack slung over one shoulder, I noticed the house looked stiller than usual. The curtains drawn, no light seeping through. "Mom," I called as I opened the door. The air smelled faintly of bleach. Nothing. I hung my coat by the door and took a few careful steps inside. Then I heard it, a thud, faint but rhythmic, coming from below. My stomach tightened. "Mom," I called again, louder this time. Silence except for that sound. Soft, uneven, like something shifting against wood. I moved toward the basement door. The old railing felt cold under my hand. Every step creaked like the house wanted to warn me away. The door itself was heavy, fitted with an old brass lock that usually rattled. Today, it didn't. It sat perfectly still, like it had been waiting. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. My fingers trembled as I turned the knob. It gave with a low groan. The smell hit first, metallic, raw, and sharp. Then my flashlight beam landed on her. A girl, maybe my age, maybe younger, was strapped to a metal table bolted into the floor. Her wrists were bound with leather. Her hair matted to her face with sweat and blood. Her eyes were open, wide, pleading, and standing over her was my mother. A scalpel glinted in her hand. She was humming softly, a tune I recognized, one she used to hum while brushing my hair when I was a kid. "Mom," my voice broke. "What are you doing?" She turned slowly. Her expression didn't change. If anything, she looked calm, gentle even. "Shh," she whispered, pressing a finger to her lips. "She's just part of the collection." I froze. The word echoed in my skull. Collection. There was a story that floated around Maple Hollow, about a woman who collected people, bodies found without eyes, families disappearing. I'd laughed it off before. Everyone had. But now I could barely breathe. The woman who'd tucked me in at night, who braided my hair and told me never to go into the woods alone. She was standing there, covered in someone else's blood. I stumbled backward, knocking into a stack of boxes. "Mom, please stop," I whispered, my throat dry. Her eyes softened in that awful motherly way. "You shouldn't have come home early, sweetheart," she murmured. "It isn't ready yet." I ran. I don't remember the stairs, only the way my heartbeat filled my ears like thunder. That night I locked myself in my room and stared at the ceiling until morning. Every sound in the house made me flinch. The pipes, the wind, her footsteps pacing downstairs. But I didn't call the police. I couldn't. My little brother Nathan still adored her and still kissed her cheek goodnight and believed every word she said. If I told anyone, if she found out, he'd be next. So I smiled. I pretended. For the next few days I acted like nothing had happened. I joked about recipes, asked about groceries, sat across from her at dinner. I even laughed when she teased me about my messy hair. My hands shook under the table, nails cutting into my palms to keep me from crying. I watched her carefully. When she left for errands, when she disappeared into the basement, When she hummed under her breath while washing dishes, the same song. Always the same. She was flawless on the outside. The perfect neighbor, the perfect mother. But every smile she gave now felt like a threat wrapped in warmth. Late one night, when the house went still and her door creaked closed, I crept downstairs. The flashlight trembled in my grip. The basement smelled like something had died there long ago. My feet stuck slightly to the floor as I stepped over dried streaks of red. I moved toward the far wall where the concrete looked uneven. I pressed my hand against it. Hollow. A false wall. My pulse roared in my ears as I pried it open. Behind it sat shelves lined with glass jars. Neat, orderly, labeled in her delicate handwriting. Inside each jar floated a single eye, milky and preserved in cloudy liquid. Each had a date. Each had a name, and one of the labels read, Vivian Reserved. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I might be sick. The truth slammed into me like a hammer. My mother wasn't just strange or obsessive or off. She was the one. The stories, the whispers, the missing girls, and every single one of them traced back here. To her, to this house, to my mother, the collector. I backed away from the hidden wall, my flashlight shaking in my grip. The jars gleamed dully under the beam. Hundreds of eyes, some clouded with age, some so fresh they seemed to follow me. I pressed a trembling hand over my mouth to keep from crying out. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. She was too calm, too clever, too used to control. If I said one wrong word, she'd turn it on me. I had to be smarter. I had to plan, and I had to save that girl. Over the next few days, I lived two lives, the obedient daughter and the desperate survivor. I laughed when she spoke to me, helped her fold laundry, even listened as she chatted about recipes. But every moment alone, I prepared. I hid small doses of sedatives in my desk drawer, studied the locks, memorized every inch of the basement and its escape routes. I left subtle hints in conversations with people I trusted. My art teacher, Mrs. Jenkins across the street, never enough to alert Mom, but enough that if I disappeared, someone might notice. The storm came on a Thursday night. Thick snow pelted the windows, turning the world outside into a blur of white. The wind howled, drowning out all other sounds. It was the only night I could move without her hearing every floorboard creak. I took a slow breath and called up the stairs. Mom, there's a leak in the attic. I think something's dripping near the vent. She appeared in the hallway, elegant as ever, her silk robe brushing the floor. A leak in this weather? She sighed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Then she smiled, that serene, chilling smile. Let's have a look, sweetheart. I followed her up, the stairs narrowing, each step pressing the air from my lungs. I could smell her perfume, lavender and bleach. My hands trembled as I held the flashlight. The small bottle of sedative in my pocket clinked softly. When she bent to inspect the supposed leak, I unscrewed the cap. My voice came out too calm, too rehearsed. You think we'll need to replace the insulation? She chuckled. Maybe. Though you really should have called me sooner. I know, I murmured, pouring the liquid carefully onto the rim of her tea mug from earlier. I just didn't want to bother you. Minutes passed. She took a sip, then another. I waited until her eyes fluttered and her movements slowed. Mom, I said softly, moving closer. You okay? Her hand slipped from the mug. Just a bit dizzy, she whispered. I know. I caught her gently, lowering her to the floor. My heart thundered so hard I could barely hear my own thoughts. I grabbed the rope I'd hidden under the loose attic board and secured her wrists, whispering apologies the whole time. I'm sorry, Mom. Then I ran. Downstairs, through the kitchen, grabbing the phone. 911, I gasped. It's my mother. She's hurt someone. There's a girl in the basement. Please hurry. My voice cracked as I gave our address. The operator tried to keep me calm, but I couldn't stop pacing, watching the attic door, half afraid she'd come down smiling again. When the police arrived, red and blue lights flashing against the snow, I felt my knees give out. They rushed inside. For a moment I thought it was over. It wasn't. Mom didn't scream, didn't plead. She smiled, the same quiet smile she always wore when someone complimented her roses. You're overreacting, she told the officers in that melodic voice. My daughter's always been imaginative, but when they opened the basement, when the flashlight beams fell on the jars and the stains, the lies collapsed. I'll never forget the moment her face changed, that flicker of realization that it was over. The calm drained out of her, replaced by something feral, almost inhuman. She screamed then, not out of guilt, but rage. They dragged her out in cuffs, still cursing softly, still smiling between her teeth. After the arrest, our house became a crime scene. They sealed the doors with yellow tape and carried the evidence out in boxes. Jars, tools, names on labels. The town was in shock. Families finally got answers. Horrific, incomplete answers. To disappearances they'd mourned for years. Nathan refused to believe it. My little brother sobbed for days, insisting she was framed, that I was lying. "She loved us, Viv," he screamed once. "She loved us." I didn't know what to say. How do you tell a child that love and monstrosity can live in the same body? Therapists tried to help. They told me to process it, to forgive the past. But forgiveness isn't possible when your nightmares still smell like antiseptic and blood. For months I couldn't sleep without hearing that faint humming from the basement. Couldn't look in mirrors without seeing the reflection of her eyes instead of mine. Time passed, but the fear never truly left. Even now, years later, I walk through empty streets and feel it. That prickle at the back of my neck, that sense that someone is watching. I catch myself noticing tiny details others ignore. A light left on in an abandoned house, a door ajar where it shouldn't be. But I survived. I made it out. I went to college, made friends, built a new version of myself from the ruins she left behind. People see me smile now and they think I'm strong. Maybe I am. But I know what real strength costs. I've learned that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears perfume. Sometimes it cooks you breakfast and kisses your forehead goodnight. Sometimes it raises you. I've learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting through it even when your hands shake. It's calling for help when your voice feels like it's breaking. It's saving someone else even when part of you still loves the monster. Because sometimes the person meant to protect you is the one you must protect the world from. Appearances deceive. Evil smiles. But vigilance and courage are the only shields we have. I grew up in a house where order mattered more than love. At least that's how it always felt. My first memory isn't laughter or warmth. It's the sound of my mother's pen tapping against her clipboard as she watched me chew. 20 times, she'd say. Not 19, not 21. Even swallowing was governed by precision. It was Dublin, 2011. I was 11 years old. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. My dad worked long shifts at the printing press, steady, quiet, almost invisible. My little sister, Maya, had my same dark hair and wide brown eyes, though hers always seemed to hold more fear than wonder. And my mother, Rowena, kept the house spotless. Curtains perfectly pressed, grass trimmed short. Dinner plates lined like soldiers in the cabinet. The neighbors smiled when they passed. "Oh, the Bennetts are such a neat family," they'd say. If only they knew. Mom had once been a teacher at a private school. Everyone said she was brilliant, strict but fair. But that wasn't what the parents thought. Too many children came home crying. Too many complaints about her methods. When the school let her go, something inside her fractured. Everything she'd once demanded from her students, she now demanded from us, only harsher, sharper, relentless. Dad never stopped her. He'd sit at the kitchen table, eating quietly while she lectured. Sometimes at night I'd hear him clear his throat like he wanted to say something, but then silence. Always silence. I loved to write. It was my secret escape. I had a small blue notebook hidden under my mattress, filled with stories about heroes, freedom, worlds that didn't exist. If Mom ever found it, she'd call it nonsense. "Stories don't feed families, Lucas," she'd snap. "Discipline does. Remember that." So I wrote in secret, my pencil moving quietly in the dark, words becoming the only air I could breathe. In our house, every moment had a rule. Wake up at 6 sharp, breakfast at 7, shoes lined perfectly by the door. Bathroom breaks were timed. Even brushing teeth had an order. Hair first, then teeth or else. Once Maya forgot. Mom slapped the toothbrush from her hand. "Do it right," she hissed. Maya's lip trembled, but she didn't cry. Crying only made it worse. Some nights I'd lie awake and hear Mom pacing the hallway, whispering to herself, "If I don't keep order, everything falls apart. Everything." Her steps would always pause outside my door. I'd stop breathing until I heard them move again. Even as a kid, I knew something was wrong with her. But when you grow up inside it, wrong starts to feel normal. The punishments began small. Forget to tuck in a chair? 10 minutes standing in the corner. Shoes left out of line? Balance them on your head until your neck burned. One night I went to bed early. I was exhausted from school, too tired to think. But then the door slammed open. Mom stood there, her silhouette cutting through the hallway light. "Do you think you control the schedule now?" she asked. "I'm just tired, Mom," I whispered. "Do you decide bedtime or do I?" "You do." "Exactly. Weakness is failure, and I won't raise a failure." She made me stand on one leg while redoing my homework. She filmed me as I tried to write, my leg trembling so badly that the pencil scratched holes in the paper. Maya tried to sneak in a glass of water. Mom caught her by the wrist. "Don't interfere. Let your brother learn." Her tone was like ice cracking. That night I thought about running away. But where would I go? Dad wasn't home most nights, and Maya was too young to leave behind. So I stayed. At school, I carried her rules with me like invisible chains. I sat perfectly straight, hands folded, never interrupting, never relaxing. Teachers praised me for my discipline, my manners. But inside, I was breaking apart. During group work, my hands would shake if I thought I'd done something wrong. I'd freeze the same way I did at home when Mom's eyes were on me. One afternoon, my English teacher, Mrs. Byrne, asked me to stay after class. "Lucas," she said softly, "you always look so nervous. Is something going on at home?" I forced a smile. "No, ma'am. Everything's fine." But she kept watching me with those kind, patient eyes, and something inside me cracked open. "She makes us follow rules all the time," I whispered. "Even how we chew." Mrs. Byrne leaned forward, her brow softening. "Who does, Lucas?" "My mom." The words felt sharp, dangerous, like saying them out loud could summon her. But once they left my mouth, I couldn't stop. It took weeks before anything happened. Mrs. Byrne must have told someone, because one afternoon, 2 strangers came to school. They had kind faces but serious eyes, and their voices were calm in that practiced, careful way. "We're just here to make sure you're safe, Lucas," one of them said. "Safe?" I echoed. The word felt like something from a storybook. I didn't even know what it meant anymore. At home, Mom seemed to know. She was sharper, watching us constantly. She checked our rooms every night, running her fingers along windowsills for dust, inspecting my fingernails to make sure they were trimmed evenly. One evening, Maya was just humming softly at the dinner table, some song she'd learned at school. "Quiet," Mom snapped, slamming her fork so hard against her plate it cracked. "Meals are for eating, not noise." Maya froze. Her eyes filled, but she didn't dare cry. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck in my throat. Later that night, under the covers, I whispered, "One day it'll be better." "I promise." "How?" she asked. "I don't know yet," I said, "but it has to be." The next week, the social workers came to our house. Mom greeted them with that practiced, sugary smile, her hair perfectly set, her tone sweet enough to rot your teeth. She called us her angels and talked about how we loved her schedules. But they weren't fooled. They noticed the charts taped to the fridge, lists of chores, punishments, rules for every hour of the day. They saw her notebooks full of behavior logs. They asked quiet, careful questions. Dad sat in the corner saying nothing, just twisting his wedding ring around his finger. When the social workers finally left, Mom turned to me. Her smile was gone. "Did you tell them?" Her voice was low, dangerous. "Did you betray me?" "No, Mom," I said quickly. I didn't say anything. Her eyes stayed on me, cold, measuring. Then she turned away. That night, she paced the hallway for hours, muttering under her breath. I could hear her through the door. Discipline keeps us safe. Without it, everything falls apart. Then silence. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday. I'd left my school bag tilted against the wall instead of perfectly upright. It sounds stupid now, but that was all it took. "You think rules are a joke?" she shouted. "I just forgot," I stammered. "Forgot?" "There is no forgetting!" She yanked the bag, dumping my books across the floor. "Pick them up. Do it again. Do it right." My hands shook as I stacked them, trying to make the corners even. She slapped one out of my hand. The crack of paper and skin made Maya start crying from the doorway. That night I couldn't hold it in anymore. The next day at school I told Mrs. Byrne everything. The punishments, the recordings, the rules, the pacing. She didn't interrupt. She just listened, pale and still. When I finished, her voice trembled slightly. "You did the right thing, Lucas," she said. "We're going to help." A week later they came back, this time with police. Mom tried to fight them. She said she was a loving mother who just wanted disciplined children. But the notebooks, the videos, even the neighbors who admitted they'd heard the shouting, it was too much. They took her away. I thought I'd feel free, but mostly I felt empty. Dad tried. He really did. He let us eat cereal for dinner if we wanted. He didn't care if our shoes were a mess by the door. But the silence in the house was unbearable. I'd sit at the table stiff as ever, waiting for rules that never came. Every tick of the clock made my skin crawl like she was still somewhere nearby watching. Maya adjusted faster. She laughed more, hummed again, sometimes too loud. I envied her for it. For me, the rules never really left. Years later, I became a writer. The dream I'd once hidden under my mattress turned into my life. I filled pages with worlds where kids fought monsters instead of timetables, where freedom was messy and beautiful and loud. People said my stories had structure, control, every word in its place. They had no idea where that came from. Even now, when I sit down to write, I sometimes hear her voice in my head. Not good enough. Not perfect. But I keep writing anyway because surviving her meant finding my own voice, even if hers still echoes. Control without love isn't discipline. It's cruelty. From the outside, order can look beautiful, but from the inside, it's just a cage. I've learned that freedom is messy, imperfect, and terrifying. But it's real. Children don't grow in the shadow of punishment, they grow in the light of compassion. And when love turns into obsession, it isn't love at all. I can't remember the exact moment when my mother's care turned into something else. Maybe it wasn't a moment at all. More like ivy creeping up a wall, so slow and quiet you don't notice until the bricks are gone. When I was little, she tucked me in at night, read me stories, and packed lunches with tiny handwritten notes. But after my dad left when I was 5, the air in the house shifted. It wasn't sudden. It was a slow tightening, like strings being pulled one by one. By the time I was 12 in the fall of 2023, Pinehurst Avenue didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a training camp, and my mother, Margaret, was the commander. I was her only soldier. Everything had a rule. Shoes lined up at the door. Homework checked twice. Dinner at 6 sharp. Lights out at 9. If I forgot one step, the whole house seemed tense, waiting for her voice. One night, I forgot to text her before stopping by my friend's house after school. We were just playing video games, laughing, losing track of time. I didn't think a quick message would matter. But at 7 on the dot, there she was, standing in the doorway, pale-faced and shaking with quiet fury. "Caleb," she said, her voice low but sharp as glass. "Do you understand the consequences of your actions?" I stammered. "I'm sorry, Mom, I'll come home now." Her expression didn't soften. She turned and walked ahead of me, silent all the way home. My stomach twisted with dread. When we got back, she locked my bedroom door from the outside. I could hear her footsteps in the hallway, steady and precise like a metronome ticking out my punishment. I called out at first, my voice cracking in the dark, but she didn't answer. Hours passed before the lock clicked open again. She didn't yell. She never really did. Somehow that made it worse. "You must learn responsibility," she said evenly. "You can't be trusted if you don't follow rules." Then silence, thick, suffocating silence. I sat on the bed, staring at the floor, unsure if I was angry, ashamed, or both. That night, something inside me shifted. I began thinking of the house as a cage. Not one with bars, but invisible walls that seemed to close in a little tighter every day. Soon it wasn't just curfews or forgotten texts. She started checking everything, my messages, my email, even the photos on my tablet. She kept a small notebook where she wrote down my comings and goings, the exact times I left for school and when I returned. At first, I told myself it was temporary, that she was just scared because Dad wasn't around. But then she installed a camera in the living room. "So I can make sure you're safe when I'm at work," she said. But it didn't feel like safety. It felt like surveillance. Even when she wasn't home, I could feel her eyes on me through that little black lens. Friends stopped coming over. One afternoon, my friend Jacob showed up with his skateboard. We were sitting in the driveway when Mom came outside, clipboard in hand. "Caleb has homework scheduled right now," she said firmly. Jacob froze, looking embarrassed. I mumbled something, an excuse I think, and went back inside. Later that night, she said, "You don't need distractions. Friends will only pull you down." I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. Eventually, I found one place she hadn't thought of, the attic. I'd sneak up there with a flashlight and a comic book, hiding between dusty boxes and cobwebs. It was the only place I could breathe. Sometimes I whispered to myself, rehearsing what I'd say if I ever had the courage to talk back. But that didn't last either. One evening, she caught me climbing down the attic ladder. "What were you doing up there?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing. "Nothing," I said quickly. "Just looking around." She didn't believe me. The next day, I heard the sound of a new lock clicking into place. School became the only place I felt remotely normal. But even there, I carried her voice inside me. I sat straighter than anyone else, raised my hand for every question, double-checked every answer. Teachers thought I was disciplined. The truth was, I was terrified of mistakes. During group projects, I froze if I thought I might mess up. Once, during a science project, I glued a piece in the wrong spot. My hand started shaking so badly I couldn't fix it. "Hey," my partner Emily whispered. "It's just glue, Caleb. Relax." I wanted to tell her it wasn't about glue, that in my house, mistakes weren't allowed, but the words stayed trapped in my throat. A few days later, Mrs. Turner, my homeroom teacher, pulled me aside. "You're always so tense, Caleb," Mrs. Turner said one afternoon, her brow creased with concern. "Is something going on at home?" I forced a smile, shaking my head. "I'm fine," but I wasn't. Nights were the worst. I'd lie on my back, staring at the ceiling until my eyes blurred, waiting for the sound of her footsteps. Sometimes I heard her whispering outside my door, her voice soft and trembling. "If I don't keep order, everything falls apart." Everything. At first, I tried not to listen. But over time, I began to wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe if I followed every rule perfectly, nothing bad would happen. Maybe I really was the problem. That's how her cage worked. It wasn't built with locks or bars, but with doubt. It made me question my own judgment until her voice sounded more real than mine. Things escalated when she installed another camera, this time in my bedroom. "It's for your safety," she said. "You need supervision to stay on track." I wanted to scream, "That's not safety, that's prison." But the words caught in my throat. Instead, I nodded like I always did, pretending to agree. That night, I hid under my blanket, trying to block out the faint red light glowing from the corner. It pulsed like a heartbeat, reminding me I was never truly alone. A few days later, I left my shoes by the couch instead of the rack by the door. She appeared almost instantly, standing over them like they were evidence of a crime. "Caleb," she said, voice low and even. "What does this say about your respect for order?" I forgot," I murmured. "I'll move them." "Forgotten rules," she replied coldly, "are the same as broken ones." She made me stand in the corner, holding the shoes above my head until my arms trembled and burned. Outside, I could hear Maya, our neighbor's daughter, laughing in her backyard. The sound felt like something from another universe, a place where life was light and unmeasured. That's when I started lying. Little things at first. I told her I had no homework when I did, just so I could sneak into the attic for a few stolen minutes of quiet. I told her my friends were too busy to hang out when the truth was they'd stopped asking. Every lie made me sick with guilt, but it was the only way I could breathe. By then, even silence felt dangerous. I didn't break free all at once. It happened in cracks, small, quiet ones, until the whole wall finally gave way. It was during a math quiz. My pencil slipped from my hand and suddenly I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, my vision blurred, and the numbers on the page started swimming. Mrs. Turner rushed to my side, kneeling beside my desk. "Caleb, look at me," she said softly. "You're safe." Safe. The word didn't sound real. Later in her office, I told her everything, the cameras, the rules, the punishments. I waited for her to tell me I was exaggerating, that all moms were strict sometimes, but she didn't. She just nodded and said, "You did the right thing telling me." Social workers came after that. They walked through the house, flipping through her notebooks, asking calm questions that made my stomach twist. Mom smiled through all of it, saying she was just a concerned parent, but they saw enough. I ended up staying with my dad for a while. His apartment was small, messy, alive in a way our old house never was. For the first time, I could breathe. I ate cereal at midnight. I left my shoes in a heap by the door. I stayed up late reading comics without feeling guilty. Still, the cage came with me. I flinched at every sudden noise. I sat at dinner with my back straight, waiting for rules that never came. Even years later in high school, the fear lingered like a shadow that wouldn't fade. I wanted freedom, but I didn't know how to live inside it. Now, I'm a writer. The stories I once whispered to myself in the attic have become my way out. The words make sense of what didn't. Mom's voice still echoes sometimes, not good enough, not perfect, but I keep writing anyway. Because I've learned something. Love without trust suffocates, and control without compassion turns into cruelty. What my mother called discipline was really fear wearing the mask of care. A child can't grow inside an invisible cage. They only learn to doubt themselves. Freedom, messy, imperfect, unpredictable, is where love actually lives. I used to think my home was normal. Now I know it was a lesson I was never supposed to survive. I used to think my life was normal, or at least as normal as it could be in Burlington, Vermont. My name's Lily Carter, and I was 12 when I first realized that the world outside my house was one I could never really belong to. Mom, Monica, was the center of everything. She had that kind of smile people in the neighborhood envied, the kind that made you believe she was the perfect parent, polite, charming, always knowing the right thing to say. But behind that smile was something that pressed on your lungs until you forgot how to breathe. She grew up alone, I learned later, an only child in a house of rules, where affection was earned, not given. I think she carried that house inside her. To the neighbors, she was devoted. To me, she was every slammed door, every frozen stare, every intercepted phone call. Dad left when I was 6. She told me more than once that she'd saved me from him, from abandonment, from chaos. But what she really saved me from was freedom. Friends are dangerous, she used to say. People change you, Lily. They take pieces of you away. So I learned not to ask. Then came that Friday night when Emily texted me about her birthday sleepover. I remember sitting on my bed, legs crossed, clutching my phone so tight my fingers went numb. Balloons, cake, movies, just a normal night. The thought made my heart flutter, to laugh, to be somewhere I could breathe without permission. But before I could even reply, I heard it, the long, aching creak of the hallway floorboards. Mom didn't knock. She never did. "Who are you texting, Lily?" Her voice was soft, but it cut through the room like glass sliding over ice. "Just Emily," I said, trying to keep my tone light. She's having a party." Her eyes flicked from my phone to my face, sharp and measuring. "And you think you're going?" I felt my throat tighten. I didn't answer, but I didn't have to. Her silence filled in everything I didn't say. That night I sat cross-legged on my bed, sketchpad in my lap, the sound of pencil on paper trying to drown out the ache in my chest. I drew faces I'd never seen, girls laughing, running, free. But outside my door, I heard her breathing, slow, steady, listening. I think she liked to remind me she was always there. The first real punishment came the day I mentioned a classmate, just mentioned. I don't remember what I said, only the look on her face. Her eyes like two cold pins, her jaw stiff, that voice low and trembling with fury. "You think you can replace me with them?" I didn't answer. I'd already learned that answers weren't required, only obedience. By the time I was 10, she'd drawn up a new constitution for our lives. No sleepovers, no phone calls without her in the room, no letters, no social media. She deleted every app from my phone herself, watching me as she did it, her reflection in the black screen like a judge sealing my sentence. Every attempt I made to reach out, to anyone, ended the same way, her standing behind me as I wrote pages of apologies, 10 pages of confessions, 10 pages of promises that I'd never betray her again. She'd pace behind me, hands folded, eyes fixed on the back of my neck. Slower, she'd say. Mean it this time. School was the only place I could pretend to exist. I'd draw during recess and faces of kids laughing, whispering, sharing secrets. I'd watch their shadows stretch across the playground and imagine stepping into them, blending in. But even there, I could feel her. Every time the bell rang, every time my teacher said my name, it was like Mom's eyes were watching through the walls. The first time I tried to sneak out, I didn't even make it to the sidewalk. She was waiting at the end of the hall, her silhouette framed in the porch light. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. She just grabbed my wrist and pulled me inside. Her breath brushed my ear as she leaned in close. "Every time you look at them," she whispered, "you're telling me I'm not enough. Don't you ever forget who saved you, Lily? Who stayed when your father didn't?" Her fingers loosened, but the words didn't. They stayed, like fingerprints on glass, impossible to wipe away. I learned early that freedom was a lie. Laughter, curiosity, even joy, all of it carried consequences. By 12, I had built my own quiet rebellion. Whispered phone calls in the bathroom, a notebook hidden behind my dresser, sketches that said what I couldn't. Each page was a secret escape, each drawing a breath I wasn't allowed to take. Emily was my lifeline. The one person who made me feel like I existed beyond the borders of my house. But even her friendship had to be hidden like contraband. I'd delete messages, memorize her words, and pretend I didn't know her when Mom was around. That afternoon, I thought Mom was out running errands. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the wind brushing the window panes. I typed quickly, "Can I come over this weekend?" My heart raced as I hit send. I didn't even hear her come in. "Who are you texting?" I froze. Her reflection appeared in the TV screen before I could answer. "No one," I stammered, hiding the phone behind my back. She moved fast, faster than I remembered her ever moving. The phone was out of my hands before I could blink. "You ungrateful little snake," she hissed. Her voice shook, not with volume, but with venom. "I gave you life and you choose them over me?" Tears burned behind my eyes. "I just wanted to go to Emily's," I whispered. I want a friend." Her expression hardened, eyes narrowing like she'd just discovered a betrayal she couldn't forgive. "You don't need friends," she said slowly, pressing each word like a stamp into my skin. "You have me. That's enough." She slammed the phone onto the table. The sound cracked through the house like thunder. That night, I filled 20 pages of apologies. "My fault. I'm sorry. I'll do better." My wrist burned, my vision blurred. But I wrote until she was satisfied, until I could hear her soft footsteps fade down the hall. School became my only safe place. Ms. Parker, my art teacher, noticed before anyone else did. She lingered by my desk one day, eyes resting on my sketchbook. "You draw a lot of doors," she said gently, "but none of them open." I remember looking up at her, the words stuck in my throat. "They're not supposed to." Her eyes softened. She didn't push, not then. But over the next few weeks, she kept checking in, small things. A compliment, a note, a piece of candy slipped onto my desk. Slowly, she built something I'd never known before. Trust. When I finally told her, just a fraction, barely even the truth, she listened. And she believed me. That simple act changed everything. Child services came 2 weeks later. I still remember Mom's smile when the social worker walked in. That perfect porcelain grin that fooled everyone. Her voice was honey, her posture calm. To them, she was warmth personified. But behind her eyes, I saw it. The storm. I was placed with a foster family temporarily. They lived on a quiet street with a golden retriever and a porch swing that creaked when you sat on it. Freedom felt like vertigo. I rode a bike for the first time, ate a cake at a birthday party, laughed until my stomach hurt. The air didn't feel heavy anymore, but I kept waiting for it to. At night, when the house went still, I'd hear her voice in my head. Betrayal. "Lily, you betrayed me." Mom's lessons ran deeper than any bruise. She hadn't just controlled my actions, and she'd claimed my mind. Made me believe independence was dangerous, that safety existed only in her orbit. I grew older, but the fear grew with me. Quiet, patient, waiting. In high school, I took psychology, desperate to understand what she'd done. I learned words for it: enmeshment, coercion, trauma bonding. None of them erased the weight of it, but they gave me language. And language, I realized, was power. Mom faded from my life after that. She stopped calling, or maybe I stopped answering. But she lingered in the smallest things. The hesitation before I trusted someone. The way I flinched at raised voices. The boundaries I built too tall. When I turned 20, I moved to a city far from Burlington. My apartment was small, messy, and utterly mine. I painted again. Bright colors this time, faces with eyes and smiles. I learned how to be a friend, really be one, without fear that love would turn into a leash. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit by my window and think of her, not with anger, but with a strange kind of clarity. Survival, I realized, doesn't mean forgetting. It means understanding, healing, taking back what was stolen. Love isn't supposed to feel like a cage. Protection isn't supposed to suffocate. Freedom is terrifying. But it's also the only thing that ever felt real. And even when the shadows whisper, even when the old fear stirs, I choose freedom anyway. I can't remember exactly when the house on Cedar Brook Drive stopped feeling like home and started feeling like a stage. Maybe it was after Dad left. Maybe it was long before. Mom always said ballet had taught her that perfection wasn't optional. It was survival. When I was little, I thought that meant she'd teach me grace. But by the time I was 13, I realized it meant she'd watch me the way a choreographer watches a dancer. Every move measured, every flaw magnified. The Whitmore house looked normal enough from the outside. 2 stories, a tidy yard, roses crawling up the trellis. Inside it was all polished floors and sharp corners, every room arranged with the precision of an exhibit. The faint scent of lemon polish hung in the air, thick enough to sting the back of my throat. Her fingerprints were everywhere, vases lined up by height, books stacked by color, picture frames at perfect right angles. Nothing ever out of place. Nothing ever real. I used to love sketching the skyline from my bedroom window, the messy tangle of rooftops, crooked fire escapes, and power lines. But Mom said it was a waste of time. Focus on things that matter, Laya, she'd remind me, her tone gentle but edged with warning. One Thursday in September, I came home with a geometry test balled up in my sweaty hand. 6%, not bad. My friend Mariah had gotten a 72 and was thrilled. I slid the paper onto the kitchen counter, praying Mom wouldn't see it. She saw everything. Her eyes flicked down, taking in the red pen marks. Her lips tightened. "We don't accept mediocrity in this house," she said, her voice calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that made the air go still. That night turned into hours of punishment disguised as correction. She made me sit at the dining table while she set up her tablet to record. I had to redo every single problem, explaining each step out loud like a hostage forced to confess. Every time I hesitated, she'd interrupt. "Slower. Think, Laya. Do you want to embarrass yourself forever?" The clock crawled past midnight. My fingers ached. My stomach growled, but I wasn't allowed to eat or use the bathroom. Tears smeared the ink until the numbers bled together. "I'm tired, Mom," I whispered once. Her eyes flashed. "Tired? You can rest when you've earned it. Do you want to end up bagging groceries for the rest of your life? Do it again." By the end, my throat burned from swallowing sobs. She clicked off the tablet, straightened her blouse, and said quietly, "You'll thank me one day." I went to bed numb, clutching my sketchbook under the blanket like contraband. The pages filled with crooked lines and jagged buildings, shapes that didn't have to be perfect. In those moments, the city I drew was the only place I could breathe. The punishment spread like mold. First math, then everything. She started inspecting my room each morning. I couldn't even leave my pencils scattered on the floor. She made me line them up by color, her fingers grazing each jar like a commander reviewing weapons. "Disorder breeds failure," she'd say. She corrected my speech constantly. If I said "like" too many times, she'd stop me mid-sentence and make me start again. If I mispronounced a word, she'd sigh dramatically. "Articulate, Laya, don't sound like some street kid." Even dinner became another performance. Forks had to be held the right way, elbows tucked in, answers rehearsed. Every moment of my life became a lesson I never asked for. At school, I got quieter. My friends invited me to birthday parties and sleepovers, but I always said no. I couldn't risk Mom finding out she didn't approve of them. Teachers noticed the way I flinched when papers were handed back, how I stared too long before unfolding them. But no one asked the right questions. I started hiding my grades. Anything under 95 I erased and rewrote. I even learned to forge Mom's signature so teachers wouldn't know she hadn't seen my progress reports. The lies ate at me. My stomach twisted every time the phone rang, terrified it was school calling home. One night, after she tore apart my English essay for lazy phrasing, I locked myself in the bathroom. I stared into the mirror at my pale reflection, my eyes red from crying. I pressed my hand flat against the glass. "This isn't me," I whispered. But I didn't know who me was anymore. The girl who laughed too loud with her friends, or the one who sat frozen under fluorescent lights while her mother dissected her worth? That fall, the nightmares began. I'd dream I was sitting at the dining table again, surrounded by shadows that whispered her words. Wrong again. Useless. The voices echoed until the walls seemed to breathe. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart racing, feeling like the house had been watching me sleep. Reality wasn't much different. One Saturday morning, I was sketching quietly on the porch while Mom scrubbed the kitchen. Sunlight slanted across the steps. I'd almost finished shading a crooked row of buildings when she appeared behind me. Without a word, she yanked the paper from my hands. "Buildings? This is what you're wasting time on?" she snapped. "It's just a hobby," I muttered, staring at the floor. Her voice sliced the air. "Nothing is just anything. Everything counts. You either excel or you rot." I wanted to scream. Instead, I hid my trembling hands under the porch cushion, the sketchbook wedged beneath. Later that night, when she was asleep, I pulled it out again and traced the faint pencil lines she hadn't managed to tear. The paper shook, but I kept drawing. Crooked buildings, cracked windows, a city that didn't need to be perfect to feel alive. Drawing became my rebellion, small, secret, and dangerously precious. Sometimes neighbors asked if everything was all right. Mrs. Jenkins, the old woman across the street, caught me once sitting on the curb with my eyes red and swollen. "Rough day?" she asked softly, her voice lined with concern. I nodded, staring at the pavement. Mom's words echoed in my head, "Never air dirty laundry." So I forced a smile. "Just tired." Mrs. Jenkins gave me a sympathetic look before heading back inside. I watched her go, my throat burning with all the things I couldn't say. Every test felt like a landmine. Every dinner felt like walking barefoot on glass. I started biting my nails until they bled, the metallic taste of anxiety lingering on my tongue. My chest tightened every time I heard Mom's heels clicking down the hardwood hallway, that sharp rhythm that meant inspection time. When I turned 15, I begged to join the art club at school. "It's after classes," I said carefully, trying to sound logical, not desperate. "It won't interfere with homework." She didn't even look up from her laptop. "Art club?" she repeated, her tone flat. "That's a waste of time. Unless you're planning to starve in some basement studio, forget it." "But Mom..." Her voice cut through mine, sharp as broken glass. "Don't argue. I'm not paying for this house so you can chase childish fantasies." I swallowed everything I wanted to scream. That night I sat in bed with my sketchbook propped on my knees, drawing in the dark. The glow of my phone flashlight was dim and shaky, but it was enough. Each pencil stroke felt like an act of defiance, quiet, invisible rebellion against her version of love. By junior year, panic attacks had become routine. My hands trembled whenever a teacher passed back graded papers. Sometimes I'd lock myself in the school bathroom, clutching the edge of the sink just to steady my breathing. One counselor noticed. She caught me after class and said gently, "Laya, is everything okay at home?" My throat closed. My mind raced with images of Mom's face if she ever found out I'd said something. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a shaky smile. "Just stressed." She nodded, unconvinced, but didn't push. At home, nothing changed. Mom still recorded my study sessions, the tablet perched like a silent witness. Every hesitation became evidence in her courtroom. "See?" she'd say, replaying my mistakes. "You lose focus. That's why you fail." But it wasn't proof to me, it was surveillance. Even when she wasn't in the room, I felt her watching, her eyes embedded in the walls. When I finally left for college, I thought the nightmares would stop. I packed my sketchbooks, a few clothes, and a fragile kind of hope. My new apartment downtown was tiny, a creaky one-bedroom with peeling paint and a window that barely opened, but it was mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes and cried. Not from sadness, but from the strange, hollow quiet. No footsteps, no orders, no lemon polish stinging the air. And yet, when the fluorescent kitchen light flickered, my body tensed automatically. Some ghosts don't vanish when you cross a city line. I'm older now. I live in Portland, not far from Cedarbrook Drive. Sometimes I pass by the old house. The roses still climb the trellis, their petals immaculate. The lawn's still perfect. From the outside, you'd never guess what happened behind those walls. I still catch myself triple-checking emails before I send them. I still hesitate before speaking in meetings, worried I'll sound foolish. At night, I sometimes wake to the echo of her voice in my mind. Perfection is the only way to survive. And yet, I draw. The walls of my apartment are covered in sketches, messy, uneven, alive. Fire escapes twisting like vines, crooked rooftops, graffiti-filled alleys glowing under streetlights. My art doesn't make money, but it makes me feel real. Every line belongs to me, not her. People say scars fade. Maybe the ones on the skin do. But the deeper ones, the invisible ones, and they just change shape. They teach you how to move, how to flinch, how to breathe. My mother's control left me anxious, wary, afraid of mistakes. But it also left me determined, desperate even, to build a life where imperfection isn't a sin. Sometimes I wonder if she knows what she did. If she ever sits in that silent house and feels the echo of her own words coming back at her. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. But I've stopped waiting for an apology. The house is hers. The shadow it left, that's mine to fight. Control disguised as love leaves wounds that never fully heal. Perfection isn't the path to worth. It's the fear of imperfection that destroys us. True strength, I've learned, comes from the courage to be human, flawed, unfinished, and free. I still remember the day I landed my first real job. Not because it was exciting, but because of everything that came after. After high school, I didn't have the luxury of drifting or finding myself. My parents were barely scraping by. My dad's back injury meant no more long shifts at the factory, and my mom's diner wages just kept the lights flickering. So the day I graduated, I made a quiet promise to find something steady. For a month straight, I filled out applications until my hand cramped, rode buses across town that reeked of oil and rain, sat through stiff interviews where smiles never reached anyone's eyes. Most went nowhere. Then somehow luck blinked my way, or at least that's what I thought. A small private accounting firm on the outskirts of Cedar Bluff, Pennsylvania, Dawson and Creekman Financial, called me back. The building wasn't much. 2 stories, brick facade, cracked parking lot. But it felt like a beginning. There were 23 of us at the final interview. Only 2 got hired, me and a girl named Kara Mills. She was about my age, maybe a year younger, with auburn hair that caught sunlight like copper wire. We clicked instantly, nervous, broke, desperate to belong. But the others, they weren't welcoming. From day one, something felt off. The office buzzed with the drone of fluorescence, smelled faintly of old carpet and burnt coffee. Yet beneath that ordinary surface was tension, tight, silent, watchful. The way they looked at us made me feel like we'd wandered into a room mid-secret. No one talked to us unless they had to. They whispered behind partitions, glanced over shoulders, and when we passed through the hallway, someone always accidentally brushed too close. During lunch, Kara and I sat at the far table, chewing in awkward silence while the others gathered together, laughing too loudly, eyes flicking our way. One day, Kara leaned in, voice barely above a breath. "Do they always have to act like we're ghosts?" I forced a laugh. Maybe it's just new guy hazing. She scanned the room. Then they're taking it too far. And she was right. Sometimes when I stayed late finishing reports, I'd feel someone watching. The hallway lights would hum, flicker, and in the reflection of the glass partition, I'd catch movement, just a flicker. But when I turned, nothing. It wasn't just paranoia. Once, Kara left her purse in the break room and swore someone had gone through it. Another time, I found my locked drawer slightly ajar, key still cold in my pocket. We didn't complain. We needed the paycheck more than we needed answers. Then came the Wednesday that changed everything. Tyler, One of the senior staff, slick black hair, arrogance practically cologne, strode up to our lunch table. "Hey, rookies," he said, leaning on the table like he owned it. "You two doing anything Friday night?" Kara looked up cautiously. "Not really, why?" He grinned. "My buddy's throwing a birthday bash. Brad's place. Everyone from the office will be there. You should come. Blend in a little. Stop looking like you're scared of us." His tone curled with mockery. The others nearby snickered. Kara gave me a look, equal parts curiosity and dread. I shrugged. "Sure, why not?" Tyler's grin widened. "Cool. Ridgeway Drive, house number 42. Don't be late. We start after 9. Friday came too fast." Kara picked me up in her beat-up blue Honda. She wore a denim jacket, hair pulled back tight, knuckles pale around the steering wheel. "You sure about this?" she asked as we passed the last streetlight out of town. "Not really," I admitted. "But maybe if we show up, they'll finally stop treating us like outsiders." She sighed. "Yeah, maybe." The GPS led us off the main road onto a dirt driveway swallowed by trees. The tires crunched gravel as the forest closed in around us. Then the house appeared. Massive, 3 stories tall, white pillars rising from stone steps, every window dark. No lights. No music, no laughter. Just 2 parked cars, one of them unmistakably Tyler's black Ford. "Doesn't really look like a party," Kara muttered. We stepped out, holding the small gift we'd brought, a bottle of bourbon wrapped clumsily in a paper bag. The air was still, heavy, smelling faintly of pine and something metallic. When we rang the bell, Lauren and Mitch, 2 co-workers I barely knew, opened the door. Their smiles were too wide, too practiced. "Welcome, welcome," Lauren sang, her voice almost too bright. "Come in, everyone's downstairs." The moment we crossed the threshold, I knew something was wrong. There were no balloons, no music, no smell of food or drinks, just cold air and a silence that pressed against your ribs, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you shouldn't be there at all. We followed them down a narrow hallway, our footsteps echoing on the wooden floor until it opened into a wide room, empty except for what was in the center. Kara stopped short. On the floor was a massive red circle, drawn in rough strokes, sticky and dark like dried blood. Inside it, pentagrams, strange symbols, scattered candles, bits of bone. The walls were smeared with the same reddish markings, crude and uneven, like someone had made them with shaking hands. Around the circle stood about a dozen people, all in black robes, hoods pulled low, faces hidden. My stomach turned. "This isn't funny," Kara whispered. Stepping back, from behind one of the masks, a voice said, calm and muffled, "Relax, it's a birthday ritual. Brad's idea." "What kind of ritual?" I asked, my voice trembling. From the staircase, someone descended slowly. Brad, the so-called birthday boy. He wasn't wearing a mask, just a dark red robe and a grin that didn't look right on any human face. "Evening, friends," he said lightly. "Glad you made it. Welcome to my party." Kara's fingers dug into my arm. "This isn't normal." Brad lifted his hand like a preacher quieting a crowd. Now, no need to be scared. Think of it as an initiation." "Into what?" I asked. His grin widened. "You'll see, but let's make it fun. Only one of you walks out alive." The room broke into laughter. I froze. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Rules are simple," Brad said, turning toward a table where a shotgun rested. He picked it up with care, almost affection. "You've got 1 minute to hide anywhere in the house. After that, I come find you. The one I find loses." Kara's eyes widened. "This is sick." "Relax," Tyler said from across the room, smirking. "It's just a game." But the way he said game made my stomach knot. Brad checked his wristwatch. 1 minute starts. Now, the lights dimmed. The group began chanting, low, rhythmic, in some language that curled around my ears like smoke. Kara grabbed my arm. "Run," we split. She bolted up the stairs. I tore through the hallway toward what looked like a kitchen. The place was a maze. Locked doors, sheet-covered furniture, the air thick with dust. Each step on the wooden floor groaned beneath me. I dove under a massive oak table, crouching low. Heart slamming so hard I thought it might give me away. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Come out, wherever you are," Brad sang, his voice teasing, almost giddy. I held my breath. My pulse roared in my ears. The steps drew closer. Then silence. Maybe he'd gone upstairs. Maybe he was after Kara. A voice whispered right behind me. "There you are." I spun around. Brad stood inches away, shotgun leveled at my face, grin splitting wider. My whole body went numb. He pulled the trigger. Click. A cold stream of water hit my cheek. Brad doubled over laughing. "Gotcha." Tyler whooped from the doorway. "Best initiation ever." Brad was crying from laughter now. "You should have seen your face, man." I just stared, shaking. "You mean, this was a joke?" Brad nodded, wiping his eyes. "A prank. Office tradition. We do it every year for the newbies. You're officially one of us now." Kara came running down the stairs, pale, breathless. When she saw everyone laughing, her face twisted. "You psychos."
We thought we were going to die.
Lauren smirked, folding her arms. "Welcome to Dawson and Creekman, sweetheart." Brad raised the fake shotgun like a trophy. "Best birthday ever." But the laughter broke off when a sound came from upstairs, a heavy thud followed by a sharp scream. Everyone went still. Brad's grin faltered. "Who's still up there?" Tyler called out, uneasy. "Probably someone drunk." Before he could finish, the lights flickered once, twice, then every bulb in the room exploded at once, glass raining down like hail. Darkness swallowed us. Someone screamed, closer this time. When the emergency lights flickered back on, I wished they hadn't. Lauren's body was slumped against the wall. Her throat was slit clean, blood pooling beneath her shoes. Tyler shouted, "Jesus Christ, what the hell is this?" Brad dropped the shotgun. "This isn't funny anymore." "Who did that?" In the center of the room, inside the pentagram, something moved. A shape. A figure. When the light steadied, we saw her. Kara. But not the Kara I'd run with. Her face was ghostly pale, her eyes wide and glassy, her mouth stretched into a slow, unnatural smile. She stepped inside the circle and whispered, "You all wanted to summon something, right?" Brad stammered, "Kara, what are you?" She tilted her head, voice soft and wrong. "Finishing your game." Before anyone could react, the candles flared high. Flames licked the walls, the air thickened with heat. Papers caught fire. The smell of burning hair and metal filled the room. Tyler tried to run, but something invisible slammed him into the wall. His neck twisted at a grotesque angle. Brad staggered backward, choking. You're doing this." Kara smiled wider. "You called for it. You wanted the devil at your party, well." Her grin split wider, eyes glowing faintly red. "You got me instead." Then she laughed, a sound that wasn't human. The flames roared higher. One by one, people fell, screaming, choking, blood spilling from their eyes as smoke filled the air. I crawled for the door, coughing, lungs burning. When I looked back, Kara stood in the center of the inferno, hair whipping in the heat, ash spiraling around her like a storm. "Seth," she said softly. "See you Monday." Then the ceiling collapsed. When I woke, I was outside on the lawn, covered in soot. Fire trucks, police, the house reduced to charred bones. A paramedic knelt beside me. "You're lucky, son. You're the only one we found alive." They never found Kara's body. The report said it was a gas leak. No mention of blood. No symbols. No chanting. That Monday, I went back to work. The office was silent, scrubbed clean of memory. A new batch of hires sat where the others had once laughed. And there she was, Kara, sitting at her desk like nothing had ever happened. She looked at me, smiled faintly, and whispered, "Hey, aren't you glad we're not the new ones anymore?" I always thought my 18th birthday would be the best night of my life. Turns out, it was the night I learned I was never really human. It started simple. My dad sliding a small envelope across the breakfast table. "Happy birthday, kid," he said, smiling behind his chipped mug of black coffee. "You've been asking for something big, so here it is." I tore the envelope open and pulled out a brass key, old and heavy, a red ribbon looped through it. "What's this?" I asked, grinning. He leaned back, smirking. "It's for the lake house. You've got it all weekend. Bring whoever you want, go nuts, just don't burn the place down, all right?" My mom sighed, lowering her newspaper.
You're really encouraging him to throw a party there?
"That house gives me the creeps." Dad chuckled. It's a cabin by the water, Anna, not a haunted asylum. I laughed quietly, heart racing. After months of exams, stress, and near breakdowns, a weekend like that sounded like salvation. By Friday evening, my car was packed, beer clinking in the back seat, music blaring from half-broken speakers, everyone yelling over each other. The air tasted like freedom. "Bro, this place is insane," Jake shouted as we pulled up. "You didn't tell us there's a dock." "Yeah," I said proudly. "Dad bought it years ago. We hardly use it anymore." The cabin sat at the edge of Coldwater Lake, old timber walls wrapped in ivy, the backyard stretching straight into dark woods. There was a fire pit, a pool, and a narrow pier that vanished into black, glassy water. By 9, the house pulsed with life, lights flashing, bass thumping, voices shouting. Someone poured vodka into a watermelon. Someone else was already skinny dipping. The night roared with youth, wild and endless. Near midnight, I climbed onto the pool deck, a champagne bottle in hand. "To 18, I yelled. Foam exploded into the air as everyone cheered. Cold bubbles ran down my face, laughter echoing off the trees. It felt perfect, untouchable, until I looked up. Beyond the fence at the edge of the woods, someone stood watching. A woman. Her posture was wrong, too still, her arms limp at her sides. The faint garden lights caught her eyes, wide, glassy, unblinking, and a slow smile curved her lips. "Yo, Tyler," Jake shouted. "Get over here, man!" I blinked and she was gone. I told myself it was some drunk hiker, but a chill had already sunk into my chest, deep and stubborn. By 3 a.m., most of my friends were out cold, some on couches, others by the pool. I was too wired to sleep. Lying back on the lounger, half drunk and half dreaming, I watched the moon ripple across the lake. The air was cool, quiet, perfect, until a wet breath touched my face. Soft, too close. My eyes flew open. She was there, inches from me. That same woman. Her grin stretched unnaturally wide, teeth crooked and yellowed, one missing. Her skin was pale, cracked like paper left in the rain. What the hell? How did you get in here?" I choked out. She tilted her head, voice low and rasping. "Happy birthday, Tyler. It's time to come home." "What?" Before I could move, a scream tore through the house, then another. I stumbled to my feet and ran inside. Blood. Everywhere, the walls, the floor, the furniture dripping with it. Not splattered, coated thick and dark. My friends stood frozen, shaking. None of them were hurt, but the smell, iron, wet, suffocating, filled every breath. "Where the hell did this come from?" Jake shouted. I shook my head, backing away. "I don't know. A voice inside me whispered, "She did this." I bolted back outside. The woman was gone, but faint laughter drifted through the trees. Jake grabbed my shoulder, and Tyler, "Don't go out there, man. I'll be back." "Lock the doors," I said, snatching my flashlight and jacket. The woods swallowed me whole. Every twig snapped, tightening my chest. My light flickered. "Hey, lady, who the hell are you?" My voice vanished into the wind. Then I heard it, low, rhythmic, whispering through the trees, a chant. Or Refitanis, Aetanis, Benedicta. My stomach turned cold. I followed the sound into a small clearing and froze. A circle of fire burned in the dirt. Around it, a group of figures in red robes swayed in slow unison, their hoods hiding their faces. The air reeked of burnt flesh, thick and oily, making my stomach twist. And standing at the center was her, the woman from the woods. Her eyes glowed orange in the firelight. "Welcome home, Tyler," she said softly, her tone unsettlingly gentle, almost maternal. "You've grown so much. What the hell are you talking about?" I shouted, voice cracking. "Who are you people?" She stepped closer, raising her blood-stained hands. "I am your mother." My chest locked. "What? Did your parents never tell you?" She whispered. "How they found you in these woods. How they stole you from me." I shook my head, trembling. "You're insane. You were born here, child," she hissed. "Born under the night of Blackfire. You are the son of the Lord below, the one they call the Dark One." I stumbled backward, heart hammering. No, you're crazy." "My parents, they lied," she snapped. "They feared you. They took you from us before the ritual was complete." The air seemed to pulse around me, waves of heat rising from the fire. Then distant screams shattered the night, my friends. I turned, spotting an orange glow spreading through the trees. The lake house. It was burning. No! I ran, branches tearing at my arms, lungs raw. By the time I reached the clearing, flames were bursting through the windows. My friends were trapped inside, faces at the glass, pounding, screaming my name. The doors wouldn't move. I kicked, pulled, screamed until my throat ripped, but the fire devoured everything too fast. Then the screams faded, leaving only the crackle of burning wood and the reflection of fire trembling across the lake. When I got home at dawn, I could barely breathe. I pounded on the door until Dad opened it, half asleep, hair a mess. "Tyler, Jesus Christ, what happened to you?" "Dad," I gasped. "They're all dead. Everyone's dead." He grabbed my shoulders, shaking. "Calm down, what happened?" "There was this woman," I cried. "In the woods. She said you stole me from her, that I'm not your son." My mom appeared in her robe, face pale as bone. "Tyler, don't listen to—" "Or is it true?" I shouted. They froze. "Tell me!"
Dad's mouth quivered.
"Son, we found you near Coldwater Woods. You were just a baby. Your parents were gone." Before he could finish, his skin began to split, thin cracks spreading like dry earth. "Dad?" Ash flaked from his face. His eyes went white. His body caved in, crumbling to dust before my eyes. "Mom!" I screamed, lunging toward her. "What's happening?" As soon as my hand brushed her arm, she disintegrated too, vanishing into gray smoke that drifted through my fingers. I collapsed, sobbing, staring at the piles of dust where they'd stood. Then the pain began, deep in my chest, searing, suffocating. I gagged, coughing until something hard forced its way up my throat. 3 rusted iron nails clattered onto the floor, slick with blood. I screamed, clutching my chest, the world spinning. The door creaked open. The woman, my supposed mother, stood there, framed by the rising dawn. Her red-robed followers fanned out behind her. Her smile had softened, almost loving. "Your powers have awakened, my son," she murmured. "You can no longer touch humans. They will turn to ash." I stumbled back. "Stay away from me!" "You are one of us now," she said quietly. "You were never meant for their world." I looked down at the ashes, my hands shaking uncontrollably. "No," I whispered. "I'm not like you." She took a step forward. "Yes, you are. You were born from my offering to the Dark One. Your blood carries his mark. You belong to the night." The air thickened, humming with power. The walls trembled, lamps shattered. My veins pulsed black beneath my skin. Her voice became distant, echoing inside my skull. "Come, my child. The world has no place for your kind, but we do. Let us teach you." I met her eyes, bottomless, glowing like embers, and for the first time I felt it. The hunger, the voice inside me that wasn't mine. It whispered she was right, that I was born from darkness, that I was meant to feed. Now I live with them, deep in the woods where the moon never feels warm. We pray in circles of flame. We offer the innocent to the fire. Each night I feel less human. Each night the Dark One speaks clearer. They call me Lior. It means the light that fell. Funny, right? My human parents called me Tyler. It means maker of bricks. But she says it means nothing in the language of the damned. I can drain a man's soul through his eyes now. I can turn flesh to ash with a touch. And yet sometimes when I see the moon's reflection on the lake, I remember that night. The laughter, the champagne, the smell of freedom. And for a heartbeat, I miss being human, just for a second. Then I remember what I am, and what I was born to do. The fire burns brighter when I speak his name, and the woods whisper it back. Orphitanus Avisus. The night belongs to me now. I never planned to celebrate my birthday on a damn cruise ship. Honestly, I didn't even plan to celebrate it at all that year. I just turned 27, barely paying rent, working double shifts at a diner in Wilmington, North Carolina. My mom kept calling, asking when I'd come visit. My best friend Ava kept pestering me to do something fun for once in your miserable life. I just kept saying, maybe next year. Then came him, Colin Hayes. I met Colin on Tinder late one Tuesday night after work. He wasn't like the usual guys. No gym selfies, no fishing pics, no mirror shots with truck decals behind him. One of his photos showed him in a crisp white uniform, the ocean stretching out behind him. His bio read, Captain for Atlantic Wave Cruises. Traveler, dog person, likes quiet dinners and loud thunderstorms. When we matched, I honestly thought it was a scam. I even messaged, "Yeah, right, captain of what?" He replied 2 minutes later, "A canoe." Then, "No, something a little bigger." We started talking, then FaceTiming, then meeting for coffee near the docks a few days later, and yeah, he really was a captain. Mid-30s, calm and self-assured in that way that makes you feel safe just standing next to him. He had that soft southern accent, wore aviators, always smelled faintly of salt water and cologne, the kind of man who'd open your car door and say, "Ma'am," without sounding like he was pretending. After a few weeks of casual dates, he told me he wanted to do something special for my birthday. "How about we take the Azure Star out for a few days?" he said, sipping his iced coffee, eyes sparkling. "You mean like an actual cruise?" I laughed. "Yeah, I'll have a cabin set up just for you. We can sail down the coast. You deserve something nice, Lena." He said my name softly, like it meant something. I hesitated. "I can't afford that, Colin." "Don't worry about a thing," he said, leaning in with that easy smile. "It's my ship. You're my guest." It sounded insane, but flattering. And for once I thought, why not? Maybe I could do something spontaneous, something beautiful for a change. The ship was docked at Cape Charleston Port. The Azure Star was enormous, gleaming white decks, gold-trimmed railings, the faint hum of music echoing from within. Passengers lined up with luggage, laughing, taking selfies. I felt completely out of place in my thrift store sundress and old sneakers. Colin met me near the boarding ramp, crisp in his uniform, exuding that same effortless confidence. "Happy early birthday, sailor," he grinned, handing me a key card. "Cabin 302. You really did this?" I asked, half laughing. "Told you," he said. "I don't joke about the sea." When I scanned my card at the terminal, the attendant frowned. Miss, your name's not showing up on our list." Colin leaned over, flashing his ID. "She's with me, captain's guest." The woman nodded, apologetic. Still, something about not being on the list made my stomach twist. Colin was busy most of the afternoon handling crew business, so I explored the decks alone. The sunlight shimmered off the ocean, dazzling white. Kids splashed in the pool. Couples sipped cocktails under umbrellas. It should have been perfect, but something about the air felt heavy. Every now and then, I caught people glancing at me. Not the usual curious glances. These were quick, sharp, knowing. When evening came, Colin finally texted, "Meet me at my quarters at 9Q, got something special planned." I smiled, thinking maybe he'd arranged a surprise. Cake, maybe a few drinks. Something simple. Around 8:50, I made my way toward the officer's deck. The hallway leading to his quarters was oddly quiet. No chatter, no footsteps, just the low mechanical thrum of the ship's engines beneath my feet. That's when I saw them. Two women stood at the far end of the corridor. Their dresses were old-fashioned, one pale blue, one cream, flowing like something from a formal night 20 years ago. Their hair was wet, stringy, their skin unnaturally pale, and their eyes, God, their eyes, were full of something that wasn't just anger. It was grief. For a moment, I thought maybe they were drunk passengers. I blinked, and one of them was suddenly right in front of me. She grabbed my hair so violently I screamed. "Let go!" I yelled, stumbling backward. Her grip was ice cold, her eyes cloudy and lifeless. She dragged me several feet down the hallway before vanishing into thin air, like smoke caught in a draft. I ran. I didn't think, I just ran. By the time I reached the bridge, I was gasping, shaking so hard my teeth clattered. Colin was inside, alone, adjusting something on the radar. "Jesus, Lena," he said, eyes wide. "What happened?" There were women down there," I stammered. One of them grabbed me. "What women?" His voice dropped, cautious. I don't know. Maybe passengers, maybe thieves or something." But even as I said it, I knew she hadn't been alive. They tried to. I stopped myself. I wasn't about to say ghosts. Colin's expression shifted, his jaw tightening just slightly. Then he grabbed his radio. "Security to Corridor C near my quarters. he said, voice low and steady. Check for 2 women, possibly trespassers. He turned back to me, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. You're safe now, okay? Nobody sneaks onto this ship, we'll check it out. Something about his voice calmed me, but underneath that calm, something in me whispered, run. When we reached his cabin, 2 guards were already there. They looked uneasy. Nothing, Captain, one said. Corridor's clear, no one matching that description. The hallway was silent, too clean, too still. Colin smirked, half a chuckle escaping his throat. See? Probably just some drunk guests. Happens all the time. He unlocked his cabin door and gestured for me to enter. The room was spotless, crisp white linens, polished wood floors, a panoramic window framing the moonlit sea. But there were no decorations, no candles, no cake. I thought you said you had something special planned, I said, forcing a laugh. I do, he replied softly, walking toward the closet. Just need to grab it. He turned his back, rummaging through a drawer. As I glanced around, something about the mirror above the dresser caught my attention. My reflection stood frozen, but there were 2 other figures behind me. It was them, the women from the hallway. Their faces were clearer now, waterlogged, scarred, their necks slashed open, their eyes hollow but focused. They weren't looking at me this time. They were pointing at Colin. Colin, I whispered, voice trembling. What's in your hand? In the mirror, I saw it first, the glint of metal, a knife, long, sharp, gleaming in the low cabin light. When he turned around, it was real. You don't like surprises? He asked, smiling too wide, too wrong. I froze. Colin, what the hell are you doing? Relax, baby, you're overreacting. His tone softened mockingly. Put the knife down, I said, stepping back. You think I brought you here for champagne and cake? He took a slow step forward, eyes darkening. His voice dropped to a low growl. I like to celebrate differently. I bolted for the door, but it didn't move. Locked. Stop, I screamed, slamming my fists against it. Someone help. No one can hear you here, he said calmly, almost kindly. This deck's soundproofed for privacy. He lunged. I dodged, crashing into the dresser. Pain exploded through my shoulder. The knife slashed through empty air where my neck had been seconds before. He laughed quietly. You move fast. I like that. Blood trickled down my temple where I'd hit the wood. My vision blurred, swimming. I tried to crawl backward as he crouched low, stalking me like prey. Colin, please, I begged, voice cracking. Why are you doing this? His eyes burned. Because I can't stop, he whispered. Because they never left me alone after the first 2. My stomach turned cold. What are you talking about? He grinned wider, trembling with something like mania. Maybe if I finish what I started, they'll finally leave. As he raised the knife, something impossible happened. I was thrown backward, hard. My body hit the door with a force so violent it burst open. Colin hadn't touched me. Something unseen had. I scrambled out into the hall, screaming, "Help! He's got a knife!" Colin charged after me, face twisted with fury. But before he could reach me, 2 security guards rounded the corner. "Captain Hayes," one shouted. "What the—" Colin swung the knife, wild and desperate, but the guards tackled him to the ground. He screamed, thrashing. "She's one of them," he shouted. "She's one of them." As they pinned him down, my legs gave out. The corridor tilted and went black. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed back on shore. My mother sat beside me, eyes red from crying. "Baby," she whispered, clutching my hand. "You're safe now." A detective came later, holding a folder thick with photos. "We've arrested Captain Colin Hayes," he said. "He's being charged with attempted murder and 2 prior homicides." My breath caught. "Prior?" He nodded grimly. 2 women passengers found dead in their cabins on previous cruises. Stab wounds. Same ship, same deck. He set the file on my lap. Recognize them? My fingers trembled as I flipped the photos over. My stomach twisted. The women staring up at me from those pictures, the ones with the pale faces and drowned eyes, were the same ones I'd seen that night. The ones who dragged me away, the ones who saved me. I celebrated my birthday 3 weeks later at home, surrounded by family and Ava. No fancy dresses, no champagne. Just laughter, pizza, and a grocery store cake. When I blew out the candles, I didn't make a wish, because I realized something that night aboard the Azure Star. Sometimes the only thing standing between you and death isn't luck. It's mercy from those who've already suffered. Now, whenever I see the ocean, a chill runs through me. I imagine those women still out there watching over the waves, making sure no one else steps into that cursed cabin. And sometimes when the wind shifts just right, I swear I hear it, a soft whisper carried over the tide. You're safe now, Lena. I'll never set foot on another cruise ship again, ever. I never thought turning 18 would almost get me killed. My name's Riley Ward, and that night, my birthday night, still sits inside me like a bruise that never fades. It throbs every time I pass a quiet house with a porch light flickering in the dark. I grew up in Crestwood, a small town just outside Bend, Oregon. The kind of place where everyone knows your name, gossip spreads like wildfire, and every house smells faintly of pine and old wood. My parents were proud, hardworking people. Dad owned a mechanic shop on Main Street, and Mom was a nurse who only ever stopped moving when exhaustion forced her to. For months, I'd been talking about throwing a big 18th birthday party. Nothing wild, just something worth remembering. Beer, music, friends. My parents were hesitant, but after weeks of pestering, they finally said yes with one rule: no party at home. So my best friend Landon helped me rent a small cabin-style Airbnb off the highway, surrounded by woods and a lonely gravel road. It looked perfect in the photos. Warm yellow lights, a porch swing, a fire pit glowing under string bulbs. When we got there that afternoon, the owner, a woman named Mara, handed me the keys. She was in her 40s, calm but with a distracted sort of energy. "Just make sure y'all don't go up to the attic," she said with a half smile, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Why?" I asked, half joking. "Old storage. Floorboards are weak. Don't want anyone getting hurt," she said. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I brushed it off. By 8 that night, people started showing up. Music blaring from a Bluetooth speaker. Red cups everywhere. The sharp scent of cheap beer and perfume thick in the air. Everyone from school came. It felt like one of those rare nights when everything actually goes right. "Riley, birthday boy," Landon shouted, slinging an arm around me. "Man, you're officially an adult. Time to make some bad decisions." "Yeah," I laughed, clinking my cup with his, "starting with this terrible beer." Everyone cracked up. Someone turned the music louder. Someone else lit sparklers outside, and for a while it was perfect. Then I saw her. She stood near the staircase, alone, quiet, watching me. At first I figured she was one of Landon's friends. She had pale skin, dark hair falling over one eye, and a vintage red jacket that looked like it belonged to another decade. When our eyes met, she smiled faintly, then started walking toward me. "Hey," she said softly, her voice smooth, almost musical. "Happy birthday." "Thanks," I said, trying to place her face. "You're with Landon's group?" She shook her head. "No, I just heard about the party. That was weird. We hadn't invited randoms, but she didn't seem dangerous, just off somehow." "Well, glad you came. I'm Riley." "I know," she said, tilting her head a little. "You're turning 18 today." The way her eyes stayed on me made something in my chest tighten, not from attraction, but unease. Before I could say anything, Landon yelled from the kitchen, "Riley, dude, come take a shot with us." When I looked back, she was still staring. "Come on," I said, grinning to mask the tension. "You drinking or what?" She smiled, barely. "Maybe later." Her voice dropped lower. "There's something I want to show you upstairs." "Upstairs?" I repeated. The house was quieter up there, the music muffled beneath the floorboards. We passed a few closed doors, warm light seeping through the cracks. What did you want to show me? I asked. She stopped near a narrow hallway closet and pointed up at a thin pull cord dangling from the ceiling. You hear that? She whispered. I frowned. Hear what? Something moving up there, she said. In the attic. I laughed nervously. You're kidding, right? There's no one up there. But then I heard it too. A faint shuffle like something dragging across the boards. Could be rats, I said quickly. Or, old pipes or... She grinned. Come on, she teased, her lips curling into a daring grin. Don't tell me the birthday boy's scared. Before I could stop her, she yanked the cord. A wooden ladder groaned as it unfolded from the ceiling, releasing a puff of dust that made us both cough. Wait, I said, raising my hand. The owner said not to. But she was already climbing, her shoes creaking on each step. The smell hit me first. Mildew, rot, old wood. The attic felt alive with stillness. Air thick with dust motes spinning in the flicker of a single bulb that buzzed weakly overhead. Boxes lined the walls, furniture draped in yellowed sheets. I climbed up after her, heart hammering louder than the music below. Okay, I said with a nervous laugh, trying to sound casual. We saw the attic. Can we go back down now? She didn't answer. She stood completely still, her back to me, staring into the far corner. Hey, I said, stepping closer. You good? When she turned, her face had gone blank, drained of expression, of life. My stomach dropped. That's when I saw movement behind her. A man stepped out of the shadows. Tall, emaciated. His skin looked like wax that had melted and hardened again, eyes nothing but dark hollows. He held a rusted knife in one trembling hand. What the? I started, but the girl lunged. Her hands clamped over my face, ice cold, inhuman. As she hissed, the skin around her mouth split and peeled away, revealing jagged bone beneath. Don't worry. Riley, she whispered, voice fractured, glitching through pitches that didn't sound human. It'll be over soon. Everything went black. When I woke, my wrists and ankles burned. Rope bit into my skin. The air was damp, thick with the metallic stench of blood and something decaying. Across from me stood a tall mirror. In the reflection behind my slumped figure he stood, the hollow-eyed man, silent, watching. What the hell are you? I screamed, thrashing against the bindings. He tilted his head, bones cracking faintly. Not yet, he rasped. His voice sounded like static bleeding through an old radio. The girl appeared beside him, her face still wrong, her eyes too wide. We'll finish with him soon, she muttered. Let's go downstairs. I watched them leave, their footsteps fading into the floorboards below. That's when everything came back, the party, the laughter, the attic. My friends. I yanked and twisted until the rope cut through my skin. The pain was blinding, but the cord finally snapped. My hand was slick with blood, but I didn't care, I had to get out. The hallway was empty. Music still drifted faintly from the speaker downstairs, warped and skipping. Red cups littered the floor, beer soaking into the rug. The air reeked of smoke, something burning. Then I heard it. Screams, voices I knew. Landon, others, from the stairwell. Their cries tore through the music. I staggered forward and saw them, the girl. Half her skin gone, and the man, his melted face glistening under the light. They were dragging Landon across the living room by his arm. Stop! I shouted before I could think. The girl's head snapped toward me, bones cracking in her neck. Her hollow eyes widened. He's awake. I ran. Something heavy crashed into me from behind, slamming me into the floor. Pain exploded through my chest. I swung my elbow back blindly and felt it hit something soft. A sharp hiss echoed in the dark. I crawled, dragging myself toward the front door. My vision swam. My fingers found the handle. I kicked it open and stumbled into the freezing night air. The wind cut through my shirt, the trees whispering above like they were warning me to run faster. Behind me, faint laughter spilled from the cabin, high-pitched, wet, inhuman. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands. 911, I whispered. Please help me. There's people, my friends. The dispatcher's voice crackled. Stay where you are, sir. Officers are on their way. By the time the police arrived, the house was silent. The music was gone. The lights flickered weakly through open windows. They found me on the porch, shaking, soaked in blood that wasn't mine. Inside, the place was wrecked. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, beer puddled on the floor. But no bodies, no girl, no man, nothing. They said I was drunk, shocked, hallucinating. Too much partying, one of them muttered. They drove me home before dawn, said I was safe now, but it didn't feel safe. 2 nights later, driving back from a friend's, I saw headlights appear in my rearview mirror, a black sedan following close. I slowed. It slowed. I turned off onto a side road. It followed. Not again, I whispered. When I pulled into my driveway, the sedan stopped at the end of the street. Idling, a shadow sat behind the wheel, unmoving, watching. Then, slowly, the car backed up, disappearing into the dark. I ran inside, locked the doors, turned on every light. "Riley, you okay?" Mom called from her room. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." But when I glanced out the window one last time, my blood turned to ice. Across the street, under the lamppost, she stood. The girl in the torn red jacket, skin pale as death. She raised one hand slowly like a wave. Then she smiled and vanished. I don't go to parties anymore. I don't celebrate my birthday either. Because sometimes when the wind presses against the house just right, I hear faint laughter drifting from above, from the attic. And I know they're still looking for me. I never thought turning 18 would be the night everything I believed about my family would come undone. My name's Riley Morgan, and I grew up in a quiet corner of Burlington, Vermont. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where news travels faster than the wind off Lake Champlain. I wasn't the big party type, more of a few friends, board games, bad movie kind of girl. But my mom had other plans. She said she wanted my 18th to be the one you'll never forget. If only she knew how true that would turn out to be. The morning started out normal enough. Balloons tied to the porch railing, streamers taped crookedly along the ceiling, and my dad teasing that I'd finally have to start paying rent now. We'd rented an old event hall near the town square called Mapleview Lodge. It wasn't fancy, but it had that small town charm. Big windows, creaky pine floors, the faint smell of lemon polish and dust. A long corridor led to a restroom tucked in the back. My mom kept saying, "It'll be perfect for pictures." By 6 o'clock, the place was packed. Family, neighbors, classmates, all blurring together beneath colorful string lights. Music pulsed from the DJ booth, laughter mixing with the thump of bass. The air was thick with perfume, cake frosting, and the faint bite of beer. I stood near the main table, smiling and hugging people, my cheeks aching. The sound swelled until it was almost dizzying. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought I was seeing things. He stood near the double doors at the entrance, tall, thin, wearing a charcoal gray suit that looked 20 years out of style. His tie hung loose, his slicked back hair greasy under the lights. His eyes moved slowly, scanning every face until they found mine and stayed there. A cold rush went through me like someone had opened a freezer behind my back. He didn't move. Not at first. Just stared. I told myself he was probably one of Dad's co-workers or a neighbor's guest, but something about him felt wrong. His focus was too direct, too still. I leaned toward my best friend Tessa, who was busy taking selfies with her boyfriend. "Hey," I whispered, "do you know that guy by the door?" She frowned. "Which one?" "The one in the gray suit. But when I turned back, he was gone. I laughed under my breath, brushing it off as champagne nerves, but the unease stayed, buzzing under my skin. The music grew louder. People shouted birthday wishes, pulled me into photos and hugs. I tried to dance, to laugh, but every few minutes I felt it again, that prickling awareness of eyes on me. Around 9, I slipped away from the crowd, pretending to grab some air. Near the entrance, I saw him again, half-shadowed under the hallway light, watching. "Riley," my dad called, laughing with his coworkers. "Everything okay, kiddo?" "Yeah," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just hot in here." He raised his beer. "That's my girl. Go cool off, then come back for the toast." I nodded, but I wasn't heading to the bar or outside. I just needed quiet, space, somewhere I could breathe. I walked down the long corridor toward the bathrooms, the noise fading until it was replaced by the faint hum of a single flickering fluorescent. The air smelled of wood varnish and old pipes. I pushed open the women's restroom door, thankfully empty, and the sharp scent of bleach hit my nose. Locking myself in one of the stalls, I sat there, heart pounding, listening to my own uneven breathing. When I finally stepped out, I splashed cold water on my face and stared into the mirror. My reflection looked pale, washed out under the harsh light, eyes wide and tired. Then, movement behind me. I froze. He was there, standing by the door. The man in the gray suit. He was taller than I'd thought, easily over 6 feet. His eyes met mine in the mirror and his mouth stretched into something like a smile, except it bent wrong, like his face had forgotten how to do it. "Hey," he said softly. His voice was low, almost polite. "Happy birthday." My throat closed up. Who are you?" He stepped forward, the sound of his shoes squeaking against the tile. "You don't remember me, do you?" I think you're at the wrong..." "No." He shook his head, slow, deliberate. "I'm exactly where I need to be." My pulse hammered in my ears. "You should leave." "My dad's right outside." He smiled wider. "Your dad?" "Yeah, I know him real well, actually." Something in his tone made my stomach twist. "What do you want?" I whispered. He tilted his head, eyes soft but hollow. Just you." I've waited so long for this moment. I stumbled a step backward, hands trembling. "Stay away from me." He didn't. He moved closer, careful, almost tender, like he didn't want to scare me, even though I already was. "I'm not going to hurt you," he murmured. "At least."
Not the way you think. Get out!
I screamed, but my voice barely carried beyond the tiled walls. The music from the hall swallowed the sound. Before I could move, his hand shot out and clamped around my wrist, tight, cold, desperate. "Let go," I cried, jerking against his grip. He leaned in close enough that I could smell his breath, metallic, sour, like rust and old pennies. "Don't fight it, Riley," he whispered. "I just need to feel it," he whispered, his voice trembling, almost pleading. "Need to know what it's like." I yanked my arm as hard as I could, the bracelet my mom gave me snapping apart. Beads scattered across the floor, clinking like tiny marbles. His eyes flicked down, following the motion. That second of distraction was all I needed. I shoved him hard and bolted for the door, but he grabbed a handful of my hair. The yank was brutal. I hit the tile so hard my ribs screamed. The air rushed out of me in a gasp. He was on me in seconds, kneeling close, breath ragged, whispering against my ear. "You look so much like her," he murmured. "Your mom. You even smile like she used to. That's what makes this so damn hard." My stomach lurched. "What are you talking about?" He pressed one shaking hand to my throat. Not enough to choke, just enough to hold me still. His eyes glistened, wild and broken. "She took everything from me. But you..." His lips twitched into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're proof I existed. Proof I mattered." I clawed at his arm, my nails tearing skin. He hissed in pain and pressed harder. "Stop struggling," he said through his teeth. "I told you I'm not a monster. His voice cracked. "I just need to see you go still. Just once, please." The words didn't make sense. None of it did. But I could see it in his face. He wasn't there anymore. Whatever he used to be was gone. My hand fumbled across the counter until it hit cold metal. The soap dispenser. I grabbed it and swung with everything I had. The hollow crack echoed off the tile as it connected with his temple. He screamed, a raw, guttural sound, and toppled sideways. I scrambled to my knees, coughing, vision blurring with tears. The world tilted and spun. My hand slipped on the slick tile, but I crawled toward the door, dragging myself inch by inch. When I reached it, I twisted the handle and it flew open. My dad burst in, 2 of his friends right behind him. "Riley!" The man on the floor groaned, clutching his bleeding head. My dad froze. His face drained of color, shifting from fury to something else, shock, guilt. "What the hell?" he breathed. I looked up at him, voice shaking. "Dad, he tried to..." But my father wasn't looking at me. His eyes were locked on him. The man laughed weakly, blood running down his cheek. "Hey, old man," he rasped. "Long time, huh?" My dad's lips parted. "Oh my God." One of his friends stepped forward. "Who is this guy?" But Dad didn't answer. His voice came out as a whisper. "Riley, he's your brother." The room spun. The walls bent inward. "No," I croaked. "No, that's what..." The man, my supposed brother, laughed again, coughing through the blood. "She didn't tell you, huh?" "Typical. Shut up," my dad shouted, stepping closer. You weren't supposed to be here. Then he looked at me. His voice cracked. Your mother and I, years ago before we married, He didn't have to finish. The truth shattered between us like glass. You lied to me, I whispered, backing away. All this time, my mom rushed in, makeup streaked, eyes wide. Oh God, Riley, but I couldn't look at her. Couldn't look at anyone. The rest blurred, sirens, police, paramedics. Questions I barely answered. They said he'd be charged with assault, maybe attempted murder. None of it mattered. I just wanted to go home. That night at the hospital, my mom tried to sit beside me. I turned my face toward the wall. Riley, she said softly, voice breaking. We thought keeping it from you would protect you. We didn't want you growing up with that shame. Shame? My voice was hoarse. You mean him? Tears filled her eyes. He wasn't always like this. He used to be... Stop. I couldn't bear another word. Outside, the horizon was paling, birds starting to sing like nothing had happened. I stared at the IV drip, at the slow rhythm of the heart monitor, and realized nothing in my life would ever be normal again. Every birthday since, I skipped the parties. No candles, no music, no cake. Just me. The silence and that echo that never leaves. Because somewhere out there, whether in a cell, a hospital, or buried deep in memory, I still have a brother. And sometimes, in the quiet before dawn, I swear I can still hear him whisper, his voice slipping through the dark. You look so much like her. I still remember my little sister's 5th birthday like it happened yesterday, and not for a happy reason. I was 11, old enough to think I was way too cool for anything involving tiaras and sparkly teacups. My mom, Rebecca, had booked this fancy little place called Rosie's Tea Garden just outside of town. It was one of those over-the-top princess experience venues for little girls. Pink walls, lace curtains, crown-shaped cookies, and grown women dressed like off-brand Disney princesses, singing slightly off-key songs about friendship and glitter. My sister Chloe was the star of the day. She'd been talking about it for months, how she was going to wear her yellow bell dress and be treated like royalty. Me, I wanted no part of it. I sat slouched on a chair in the hallway near the entrance, my DS balanced on my knees, lost in Pokemon Diamond. My mom was somewhere in the back talking to the event planner, and Chloe was squealing as one of the princesses sprinkled fairy dust over her curls. That's when I heard a woman's voice. Hey there. You're Rebecca's kid, right? I looked up. She was standing a few feet away, mid-40s maybe, brown hair tied in a low bun, a pale yellow cardigan, a big warm smile. She looked like someone's Sunday school teacher. Yeah, I said, pausing my game. Thought so. Her smile grew wider. You probably don't remember me. I'm your Aunt Linda. Haven't seen you since you were, gosh, maybe 4 years old. That didn't sound totally impossible. My family's huge, and there are cousins and aunts from marriages I barely know. People are always showing up at reunions, acting like I'm supposed to recognize them, so I went along with it. Oh yeah, maybe, I said casually. Linda laughed softly. You've gotten so tall. Your mom always said you were gonna shoot up like your dad. I nodded, polite but distracted. She leaned a bit closer. How's school? You still liking it? It's fine, I said. I'm in 6th grade now. 6th grade, huh? Wow, you must be doing great. I shrugged. I guess. She smiled again, that warm Sunday school teacher smile. That's wonderful. Hey, listen. I brought Chloe a big dollhouse for her birthday. It's out in my car. I was hoping you could help me carry it in. It's a little heavy. Something in my stomach tightened, not quite fear, just that weird instinctive twinge. Still, nothing seemed wrong. She sounded normal. She looked normal. Then she added, I also brought another cake, chocolate fudge, Chloe's favorite. If you help me, you can have the first slice before everyone else. That actually sounded nice, but something about it still nagged at me. My dad had drilled it into me a million times. Don't go with strangers, even the nice ones. But in my head, this woman wasn't a stranger. She knew my mom's name, Rebecca. She knew my sister's birthday theme. Even the gift, I hesitated. Where's your car? Right outside, hun, she said gently. Just through the back door. It's closer than the parking lot. The back door part bothered me. I'd seen the parking lot, it was right out front. Why didn't you just bring it through there? I asked. She smiled again, but this time the smile didn't reach her eyes. Oh, she said lightly. There's too many people at the entrance. I didn't want to bump into anyone with the dollhouse, she said, still smiling. But something in her tone shifted, just slightly, quicker, sharper, like the friendliness had a time limit. I was trying to think of what to say when she stepped closer, lowering her voice. Come on, sweetheart. Let's hurry before the frosting melts on that cake. I stood up slowly, my DS slipping into my pocket. I can tell my mom to help you, I said, nodding toward the back. She's right. Oh no. No need to bother her. She cut me off, still smiling, but her voice tightened, thin and strained like a piano wire about to snap. She's busy, isn't she? You're a big boy. You can help. That's when the uneasy flutter in my chest turned to full-blown fear. I didn't know why, but my eyes drifted toward the back door. She followed my gaze, and that's when I saw it. Through the small window pane, a car was idling just outside, engine running. There was a man in the driver's seat, his face dim behind the glass, staring straight at us. Linda noticed me noticing. Her smile faltered for the first time, but only for a second before she forced it back on. That's your Uncle Ray, remember him? She said too quickly. He helped your dad fix the garage door once. I didn't answer. My throat was tight. My pulse hammered in my ears. If you could just grab the box, he began, reaching for my sleeve. Don't touch me, I snapped, jerking my arm back. Her eyes hardened instantly. The warm, motherly tone evaporated. Hey, she said, her voice low now, almost scolding. Don't be rude. I'm trying to do something nice. Then go get my mom, I said, my voice shaking. She took a small step closer, her hand tightening around her purse strap. Stop being difficult, okay? Just get away from me, I shouted louder than I meant to. Her jaw clenched. For a heartbeat, I thought she was going to grab me again. But then, from inside the tea room, my mom's voice rang out, sharp and panicked. Eli! Eli, where are you? Linda froze mid-step. From the other hallway, Aunt Teresa appeared, eyes darting. Eli, there you are. We've been looking all over for you. I swear I've never seen anyone's face change so fast. Linda's smile vanished completely. Her whole expression collapsed into something cold and empty. She spun toward the door, yanked it open, and yelled over her shoulder, Go! The car peeled out of the lot before I could even blink. My mom was suddenly there, kneeling in front of me, grabbing my shoulders. Eli, are you okay? What happened? Who was that? I was shaking so badly my DS nearly slipped from my pocket. She said she was Aunt Linda, I stammered. She said she had a dollhouse and cake. Teresa turned to one of the workers, her voice trembling. Lock the doors. Right now. They did. The entire tea room went into what I later learned was basically a lockdown. They herded all the kids into one of the back party rooms and started counting heads. Chloe was crying, clutching her little tiara, her cheeks streaked with glitter and tears. My mom wouldn't let go of me. She just kept whispering over and over, You're okay. You're okay. Like she was trying to convince herself. The cops showed up maybe 20 minutes later. 2 officers took me aside to get my statement. I told them everything. What she looked like, the car, the man, her voice, every detail I could remember. One of them, a tall guy with gray hair named Officer Haynes, nodded as he wrote in his notepad. You did the right thing, son, he said. You trusted your gut. That probably saved your life today. My mom asked if they could track the car from the security cameras outside, but apparently, the cameras at Rosie's Tea Garden were just for show. They didn't record a thing. The police promised they'd follow up. They never did. Weeks passed, then months. No updates, no arrests. Mom changed the locks on our house. She stopped letting us out of her sight at public events. She even started using fake names whenever. She booked anything for Chloe, and I still think about that woman sometimes, and the way she said my mom's name, Rebecca, like she'd known her forever. The way she smiled, like she'd practiced it in a mirror. The way that man was already waiting in the running car, ready to drive off. How did she know my mom's name? My sister's birthday theme? It's been over 10 years now and I still don't have answers. Sometimes, when I'm in a crowd and someone says my name, I freeze before turning around, just in case it's her. just in case she came back to try again. I always thought birthdays were supposed to be loud, messy, and filled with people you actually wanted around. Mine always were, until last year. The night that made me realize some family stories aren't just tales told to spook kids. I turned 19 that New Year's Eve. Yeah, I was one of those December 31st babies. My dad always joked that I came into the world trying to steal the New Year's spotlight. Every year my parents merged both celebrations into one long night of food, noise, and champagne. But this time it wasn't at our house. My Aunt Sandra had gone abroad for a year, some medical contract in the Philippines, and she'd offered us her countryside home in Ash Grove, Oregon. The place was massive, long hallways that seemed to breathe, high ceilings and dark wooden floors that creaked even when no one was walking. She had a caretaker, a quiet man named Mr. Harlan, who my mom said was a little off but harmless. When we arrived that afternoon, I remember the house being colder inside than it was outside, even with the heaters on full blast. Guess Aunt Sandra forgot to pay the ghost for heating, Lily joked, dragging her suitcase across the floor. Don't start that again, my mom said, rolling her eyes. There are no ghosts here, just bad insulation. But Lily wasn't joking. Not really. My cousins had told me a dozen times the house was haunted, that Sandra once woke up to the sound of someone brushing their hair in the guest bathroom, that she'd find the sink full of black strands every morning, even though she lived alone. I laughed it off, like always. I wasn't one for ghost stories. Honestly, I was more worried about whether my friends from town could make it through the snow before midnight. By 6, the whole family had arrived. The air smelled like roast chicken and cinnamon cider. Champagne popped for the adults, and my dad pretended not to notice the cheap beer Lily and I sneaked. The living room glowed with that warm, amber, New Year's light, music from someone's phone speaker, my little cousin Jake racing around with glow sticks shouting, "Happy birthday, Eli." I smiled and played along, but something felt off. The laughter felt slightly out of sync, the air a little too still for a house so full of people. By 10, my friends still hadn't shown. Outside, the snow had begun to fall, soft, slow, smothering sound itself. "Guess it's just family this time," my dad said, clapping my shoulder. "Come on, son, one last party before adulthood ruins the fun." He poured me a drink, half cider, half champagne, and everyone gathered around the TV for the countdown. 9 p.m. The room was chaos, laughing, shouting, glasses clinking. My uncle, already drunk, tried to dance with the dog. I stood by the big window watching the snow glow under the porch light. Lily came up beside me. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I snorted. "Not yet. Maybe later." She smirked. "You ever been down the East Hall, where the guest bathroom is?" "No, why?" She shrugged. "That's where Sandra said she heard the hair-brushing sounds. You know, the one with the old mirror." "Cool," I said. "I'll pee outside then." We both laughed, but her tone left a small, uneasy weight in my chest. "PM. All right, everyone ready?" my mom shouted. 10. The countdown began. The room vibrated with energy. 9, 8, 7,
6, 5, I laughed, spinning my drink, a fizz of warmth in my stomach.
4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. The room erupted. Cheers, confetti, champagne bursting. My uncle banged pots together like a maniac. I laughed, dizzy from the sound and lights, until I realized I really needed to pee. Slipping away unnoticed, I headed down the hall. The east corridor swallowed the noise behind me until it sounded like laughter coming from underwater. The air was colder here, heavier. I flipped the bathroom light switch. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. "Come on," I muttered, slapping the wall. "Don't do this to me now." On the third try, the light flickered to life, dim, yellow, and buzzing like a dying bee trapped in glass. The door in front of me was old and heavy, painted that dull off-white every old house seems to love. The brass knob was cold under my hand. I pushed it open slowly. The smell hit me first. Musty, layered with something faintly sweet, like old perfume that had lingered too long in the air. And then I saw her. A woman stood by the sink, her back turned toward me. Her hair was black. Not brown, not dark, but black like ink dissolving in water. It fell nearly to her waist. She wore a long, loose white dress that seemed to hum under the dying light, its fabric almost glowing. Her skin looked wrong, pale, waxy, as if it would melt if I touched it. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it hurt. Hey ma'am, I managed to say, my voice cracking. She didn't move. I think you've got the wrong house, I added, forcing a shaky laugh. Still nothing. I blinked once, twice. She was still there. I rubbed my eyes, hoping it was some reflection trick, some optical illusion, but her outline stayed perfectly still. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, her head began to turn. Not her body, just her head. Her neck twisted, slightly until I saw her cheek, then her chin, and then one pale, glassy eye staring straight at me. My knees almost buckled. I slammed the door and bolted down the hallway. "Whoa, dude, you okay?" Jake called as I stumbled back into the living room. Everyone was still laughing, clinking glasses, shouting over the TV. Nobody noticed the way my hands were shaking. I dropped onto the couch, gasping for breath. My mom looked up from her drink. "You good? You look sick." "Yeah," I said, swallowing hard. "The bathroom light freaked me out. Old wiring, I guess." My dad chuckled. "You're fine. Old houses do that." But I wasn't fine. A few minutes later, Lily let out a sharp shriek. "Guys, look at this!" She was holding my phone. I'd left it charging on the table earlier. "What's wrong?" Mom asked. Lily's voice trembled. "Eli, these are your photos, right?" I took the phone from her, and my stomach dropped. They were the selfies she'd taken with me earlier that night, us goofing off, making faces. But in the corner of almost every single picture just behind us, she was there, the woman in white. In the first photo, she stood near the hall. In the next, she was closer, by the doorway. In the last one, she was standing right behind me. "Holy hell," I whispered. My uncle leaned in, squinting. "That's a reflection. A trick of the light, maybe." "There's no mirror behind us," I said quietly. "That wall's solid." The laughter died. The room went still. Lily deleted the photos almost immediately, whispering something under her breath. Every sound. In that house, the ticking clock, the creaking floorboards felt too loud, too alive. My skin crawled. I wanted to leave, but Mom put a hand on my arm. "Don't freak yourself out," she said gently. "You've been drinking. You probably saw your own shadow." I didn't argue. I just sat there, gripping the edge of the couch, staring at the dark hallway where the light had flickered. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. My brain kept replaying it, the way her head turned, the color of her skin, that faint perfume that still clung to my clothes. I told myself I had to check. The hallway was colder now, silent except for the wind brushing against the windows. I pushed the bathroom door open again. The bulb flickered weakly overhead. The air felt damp, like the room had been breathing. Then I saw it. The mirror above the sink was fogged over, as if someone had just exhaled against it. And across the glass written with a fingertip were 3 words, "Don't lock it." My heart lurched. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the rug, the words burning into my head. Behind me, the door gave a long, slow creak, like someone pushing it open from the other side. I didn't wait to see who. I ran, slammed my bedroom door, stayed awake until the light bled through the curtains. When morning came, my parents told me the caretaker, Mr. Harlan, had gone missing. His room at the back of the property was empty, the bed unmade. The only thing he'd left behind was a hairbrush sitting on the dresser, its bristles tangled with long black strands of hair. That was the last time any of us stayed there. I don't celebrate my birthday anymore. And every time I hear someone brushing their hair at night, I freeze because I can still smell that perfume. Faint, sweet, and wrong. I never made a big deal about my birthday. Never had. Even as a kid, I was the one cutting my cake quietly in the kitchen, while my cousins tore through the living room like wild animals. I didn't like the attention, the off-key singing, or the fake cheer that came with it. My mom used to say I was born old, and maybe she was right. By 19, that habit had stuck. I didn't want a night out or a crowd chanting my name. I didn't even want to post one of those birthday selfie stories everyone else did. I just wanted my mom's lasagna and a quiet dinner with my family. Of course, my friends had other plans. Around 8 that night, I was sitting on my bed scrolling through my phone when Ryan, my best friend since middle school, texted, "Ryan, yo, man, we're not letting your boring ass waste your birthday again. Get dressed." I laughed under my breath and typed back, "Me, already did dinner. I'm good, let's just chill tomorrow." A few seconds later, my phone lit up with a FaceTime call. Ryan's face filled the screen, curly hair spilling from under a beanie, that goofy grin he wore like a permanent accessory. "Tomorrow?" He scoffed. "Nah bro, tonight we're taking the Jeep out to Ridge Pine." I frowned. "Ridge Pine? Dude, that place is closed off at night." He shrugged, eyes flicking toward someone beside him. "Technically, yeah, but no one patrols that trail after dark. It's chill, just a couple miles of dirt and trees."
You'll love it.
"It's your birthday, man, come on." I hesitated. I knew Ridge Pine State Park, 30 minutes out of town, thick with woods, picnic spots, and hiking trails. But once the sun set, it went dead quiet. Not even the rangers stuck around past 8. My phone buzzed again, 2 new texts. "Tyler, you're coming, bro. Don't be a buzzkill. Liam, we got the drinks. Don't make us waste gas." That last one made me laugh. I sighed, tossed my phone onto the bed and muttered, "All right, fine. Just for a bit." By the time they pulled up, the sky had dipped into that dark orange hour where the world feels like it's holding its breath. Ryan's black Jeep was already coated in dust from earlier rides. When I climbed in, the air hit me. Cheap cologne, fast food, and energy drinks. "Birthday boy," Tyler yelled from the passenger seat, half out the window with a red plastic cup raised high. We pre-gamed a little. "You started without me," I said, laughing. "Just a warm-up," Liam called from the back seat, holding up a half-empty bottle of vodka. "You're the guest of honor." Ryan grinned and tapped the wheel. "Seatbelt on. Let's make it memorable." As we drove, the roads thinned out, the streetlights fading behind us until there was nothing but tree silhouettes and fireflies pulsing in the dark. By the time we reached the park entrance, orange cones blocked the road. "See?" Ryan said, hopping out. He moved one aside with a casual kick and got back in. "Easy. Until a ranger catches us," I muttered. He just laughed. "It's your birthday. Live a little." The one-lane road into Ridge Pine wound like a black ribbon through the woods. The Jeep's high beams cut through mist and branches that reached too close, brushing against the windows. The deeper we went, the more the forest seemed to swallow the light. Every tree melted into the next until it all became one endless breathing shadow. A sign flashed by in the headlights. Trail 14, Ridge Path Loop. "That's the one," Ryan said. "Perfect for off-roading." The dirt trail was narrow, barely wide enough for the Jeep. Rocks jutted up like bones from the ground. Each bump made Tyler whoop like a maniac. "Bro, this is insane," he shouted over the music. "You sure we won't get stuck?" "I've done this before," Ryan said, gripping the wheel tighter. "Relax." "Yeah," Liam added, laughing. "And last time you popped a tire." Ryan flipped him off without looking. "That was one time." By then, the air inside was thick with smoke. Tyler had rolled one and passed it around. I didn't smoke much, but I took a few hits. The windows fogged slightly, and through the faint hum of bass and laughter, the smell of pine and damp earth drifted in through the vents. For a while, it was fun. Loud music, bad singing, and the thrill of being where we weren't supposed to be. But gradually, the laughter faded. Somewhere between songs and potholes, I noticed Ryan slowing down. "What's up?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. His eyes darted toward the dark outside the windshield. Then, barely above the engine's hum, he said, "Did you guys hear that?" The music cut off. The silence that filled the Jeep felt too heavy, like the woods were leaning closer to listen. Everyone went quiet. It was faint but sharp, a sound that didn't belong to the night. A scream, high-pitched and distant, cutting through the trees. Definitely human. Probably an animal, Tyler said, forcing a shaky laugh. Sounded like a woman, Liam muttered. We waited, no one breathing. The Jeep idled softly, headlights humming, and the only sound was the whisper of wind brushing through the leaves. Then it came again, a shriek, longer this time, echoing ahead through the woods. Ryan angled the headlights forward. The beam sliced through the dark, revealing nothing but fog, bark, and dirt. "I don't like this," I said quietly. "Maybe it's a fox," Tyler said, laughing nervously. "They scream like that sometimes." Ryan nodded, but his jaw was tight. "Yeah, probably." Still, his knuckles stayed white on the steering wheel. We sat there for a while, pretending it was fine. Then Ryan parked the Jeep in a wider clearing off the trail. The music came back on, lower this time, just bass murmuring under our voices. Tyler poured vodka into the cups and Liam launched into some long rant about his ex, full of curses and eye rolls. We laughed, half-hearted but grateful for the noise. For a few minutes it almost felt normal again. Then I said, "Gotta take a leak," and pushed open the door. The air outside hit cold and heavy, thick with pine and damp earth. I walked a few feet into the trees, found a spot, unzipped, and froze halfway through. Crunch. A footstep. I wasn't imagining it. Someone had stepped on a branch nearby. I turned, squinting through the dark. "Hello?" I called softly. Nothing. Then, crunch. Closer this time. "Guys?" I shouted, backing toward the Jeep. The engine roared to life, headlights flooding through the trees. Ryan's voice cut through the noise. "Get in, dude." I ran, heart pounding, and slammed the door behind me. "What happened?" Tyler asked, eyes wide. "I heard footsteps," I gasped. "Like someone walking toward me." Ryan turned on the brights, aiming straight ahead, and that's when we saw her. A woman stood about 10 feet in front of the Jeep, right at the edge of the trail. She wore a gray hoodie, the hood pulled low over her face. She wasn't moving. Ryan rolled his window down halfway. You okay?" he called out. No answer. She just stood there. Then slowly, too slowly, she stepped backward into the trees until the shadow swallowed her. "What the hell was that?" Liam whispered. "I don't know," Ryan muttered. "But we're leaving." He shifted into reverse. "Wait," Tyler said suddenly, voice cracking. "Look." We all turned. My stomach dropped. There were more of them, at least 4 figures, all in hoodies, standing just inside the tree line, one on each side of the trail, still watching. "Jesus Christ," Ryan whispered. "Dude, drive." "Now," Liam said, his voice breaking. Ryan hesitated for a fraction of a second. Too long. Something slammed against the back of the Jeep. A deep, heavy thud. Tyler screamed and twisted around. Through the red glow of the taillights, a man stood inches from the rear window, staring straight in. His face was blank, drained of color, his eyes catching the light, glowing almost animal-like. "Go!" I shouted. Ryan hit the gas. The Jeep tore forward, bouncing hard over roots and rocks. Branches whipped against the window, snapping in the wind. My head slammed the headrest. Nobody spoke, just our ragged breathing and the engine's roar. We didn't see them again, but somewhere behind us, faint and stretched through the trees, I swore I heard it. Laughter. When the dirt finally gave way to pavement, we all exhaled at once. Ryan didn't stop until we hit the main road, headlights catching the faint glow of a gas station in the distance. Only then did he pull over. His hands were shaking on the wheel. "Bro," Tyler said quietly. "What the hell was that?" Liam looked pale, staring out the window like the trees might follow us. "They weren't normal," he whispered. "You saw their faces?" I didn't answer. My thoughts were spinning. The woman's slow retreat, the stillness of the others, the red light in that man's eyes. Ryan swallowed hard. "We're never going back there, ever." Nobody argued. We never told anyone. Not our parents, not our friends. We deleted every photo, every video we'd taken earlier that night. It felt wrong to keep them. A week later, Ryan sent a link to our group chat. A local news article. Unidentified woman found near Ridge Pine Trails. Ongoing investigation. The attached photo was grainy, but I knew that hoodie, the same light gray one I'd seen 10 feet in front of the Jeep. The article said she'd been missing for over a week. They never found who or what was responsible. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see that man's face lit red through the glass. And every year since, when my birthday rolls around, I stay home. No drinks, no friends, no trails, just me, alone. Because some celebrations aren't meant to happen in the dark. I never thought my 21st birthday would become something that still wakes me up shaking at night. I'd been counting down to that day for years. Not for the drinking or any wild party, but because it felt like a checkpoint. A doorway between being a clueless kid and becoming someone whose life was finally taking shape. My Uncle Travis lived down in Clearwater, Florida, in one of those postcard perfect houses that sat right on the water. Big backyard, pool that shimmered under tiki lights, a full bar, even a dock with string lights draped across it like a wedding setup. When he said, "You can use the house for your birthday, just don't wreck the place," I actually laughed out loud. It felt like winning the lottery. I'd just finished my second year of college and was back home, crammed into a tiny apartment with 2 roommates and 0 privacy. Travis's place felt like a dream escape. I started planning weeks ahead. Nothing crazy, just a few close friends, some music, some beer. You know how that goes, though. I invited maybe 15 people. Each of them invited 2 or 3 more. By 9 o'clock, the backyard looked like a college tailgate gone feral. Music pounded through the outdoor speakers. Bass so heavy you could feel it in your ribs. People were in the pool. Beer pong tables covered the patio. Couples made out under the string lights. I was already a little buzzed, laughing too loud, not caring that things were getting out of hand. "Bro, this place is sick," my friend Tyler shouted over the music. He had 2 Coors Lights clenched in one hand, foam spilling over his fingers. "Yeah, just try not to drown anyone, all right?" I yelled back, grinning. That became my mantra of the night. "Stay outside. House is off limits unless you're using the bathroom." I must have repeated it 100 times. Still, people slipped inside, some to pee, others pretending to. I caught one couple tangled up in the downstairs guest room, and that alone made my stomach twist. By 11:30, I was trying to rein things in, but it was like the party had grown its own pulse. I kept spotting faces I didn't know, guys in beanies and dark hoodies lingering near the fence, whispering to each other. Every time I looked their way, they turned their heads. Around midnight, the inevitable happened. Red and blue lights washed across the pool like a warped disco. "Party's over," one of the cops yelled as they came through the side gate. "Let's go, everyone out." It took almost 20 minutes to clear the place. When the last group stumbled off down the street, beer cans floated lazily in the pool, catching the colored light. My chest tightened. Travis was going to kill me. Soon it was just the core crew left, Tyler, my buddy Chris, and 2 girls from school. We sat around the pool talking quietly. The music long gone, the night suddenly too still. One by one they drifted off until only Tyler remained, drunk and glassy-eyed. "Dude, just crash on the couch," I told him. He mumbled something, half asleep. "Your uncle said no sleepovers, right?" "Yeah," I sighed. "But one guy won't hurt." He nodded, or maybe just swayed, and I helped him inside. He hit the couch and was out before I even found the light switch. I did a quick sweep of the place, locked both backyard gates, checked the back door, turned off the kitchen lights. When I came back, Tyler was already snoring, deep and ugly. For a moment, I just stood there in the dark living room looking at the chaos. Empty bottles, wet footprints on the tile, confetti drifting in the pool outside. I told myself I'd deal with it all in the morning. Upstairs, I brushed my teeth with my finger, too tired to care, and collapsed on the guest bed. I don't know how long I was out before my stomach twisted. Maybe an hour. I bolted upright, dizzy and clammy, stumbled into the bathroom and threw up until my throat burned. It was one of those burning, nauseating hangovers that hit too soon, like my body was punishing me before I even had the chance to regret anything. I splashed water on my face and gripped the edge of the sink, head pounding, stomach tight, trying to breathe through it. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not above me, below, downstairs, near the foyer. Slow, steady, deliberate. At first, I told myself it was Tyler getting up for water, but then I remembered how wasted he'd been. He could barely stand, let alone walk. I stepped out into the upstairs hallway, the floor cold under my feet, and leaned over the railing that overlooked the foyer. The house was mostly dark, lit only by the soft blue shimmer from the pool through the glass doors. "Tyler?" I called out, my voice low and shaky. The footsteps stopped. Whoever was down there froze mid-step right in the center of the foyer. I squinted, trying to focus through the dim light. There was a figure, a man maybe, standing completely still, head tilted up toward me. I couldn't make out a face, just a dark silhouette. Then, from the living room, I heard a soft, rhythmic snore. Tyler. He was still asleep. A chill ran through me, so sharp it almost made me dizzy. "Who's there?" I called, louder this time. No answer. A floorboard creaked near the kitchen, then another. Whoever it was moved, slowly, deliberately, out of sight. I backed away from the railing, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. My brain went blank. Run, hide? Lock myself in the room? I didn't want to leave Tyler down there, but some instinct screamed that I wouldn't help anyone if I got caught. I grabbed my phone, hands slick with sweat, and called Tyler's number. Praying the sound would wake him, he answered. "Tyler," I whispered. Relief breaking through my fear. Nothing, just breathing, slow, heavy. My blood ran cold. I hung up so fast my thumb slipped on the screen. My hands were shaking uncontrollably as I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice was calm, practiced. I whispered, "There's someone inside my uncle's house. I think they broke in. My friend's downstairs, he's passed out. I'm upstairs." "Okay," she said. "Stay on the line with me. Can you lock the door to the room you're in?" "Yes," I breathed, backing into the guest room and sliding the lock shut as quietly as I could. "Do not announce that you've called the police," she said firmly. "Just stay quiet. Officers are on the way. What's your address?" I gave it to her, voice trembling. Then, knock. A soft tap on the door. Light, almost polite. I froze. "Are they at your door?" She whispered. "Yes," I mouthed, barely breathing. "Stay quiet," she said. "Do not respond." The doorknob turned slowly, a metallic click that made my skin crawl. Then it stopped, silence, then breathing. On the other side, my whole body shook. I could feel tears pressing behind my eyes, but I didn't dare make a sound. "Help is close," the operator whispered. "They're almost there." It felt like hours, but it must have been only minutes before I heard movement downstairs. Boots on tile, voices shouting. "Clear, clear!" The front door creaked open fully, and a rush of footsteps filled the house. "You can go downstairs now," the operator said softly. "Officers are inside." I cracked the door open. "Up here!" I called. Two officers met me on the stairs, flashlights cutting through the dark. They found the back door wide open, the curtains fluttering with the night breeze. Tyler was still on the couch, dead asleep, drool running down his chin. They searched every room. Nothing. Whoever had been there was gone. One of the cops asked if anything was missing, but I had no idea. It wasn't my house. I just kept nodding, numb, thanking them while they promised to leave a patrol car nearby until morning. When I finally went back upstairs, I couldn't even think about sleep. Every creak, every gust of wind made my pulse jump. I sat by the window until dawn broke over the water, pale and empty. 2 days later, my uncle came home early. I told him about the party, not the break-in. Just said things got a little wild. He sighed, didn't look surprised. A week later, he called me. "Hey," he said, "you didn't happen to see my Cartier watch, did you? The one I keep in the kitchen drawer?" My stomach dropped. It was gone. That was the moment I told him everything. The party, the strangers, the footsteps, the knock. He didn't yell, didn't threaten to make me pay. He just said in the calmest voice I'd ever heard, "You'll never use my house again." And he meant it, but that's not what still keeps me awake. What haunts me is the sound of that breathing on the other side of the door, that soft, almost courteous knock, and the cold, gut-deep certainty that whoever stood there wasn't just looking to steal, they were waiting. I still remember that day like it happened yesterday, November 28th, 2009, the day that changed everything for me. Back then, I was a single mom trying to raise my little girl, Lily. She'd just turned 7 that year, and for weeks she wouldn't stop talking about this limited edition doll, Daniela's Dream Edition. Every girl in town wanted one. It was the kind of doll that sang, blinked, and came with its own tiny wardrobe and diary. It wasn't cheap, but for me, it wasn't just about the money, it was about keeping a promise. Lily had worked so hard that school year. A week before, her teacher, Mrs. Taylor, had called me and said, "Your daughter aced every single test. You must be so proud," and I was. God, I was. So I told her, "If you keep it up, baby, Mommy's gonna get you that doll for your birthday." She'd smiled so wide that day, wrapping her little arms around me like I'd just handed her the moon. I had no idea what that promise would end up costing me. The morning of November 28th was pure chaos. I'd already been to 6 stores by noon, all sold out. Every parent I passed had that same desperate look, some even laughing about it like it was part of the holiday madness. But I wasn't laughing. Lily's birthday was the next morning, and there was no way I could show up empty-handed. Around 2 p.m., I stopped at a small diner just to catch my breath and grab a coffee. The waitress, an older woman named Donna, noticed the panic written all over my face. "You all right, honey? You look like you've been running a marathon," she said, sliding a mug toward me. I laughed weakly, feeling the exhaustion catch up to me. "I've been to almost every store in town looking for that stupid Daniela doll. It's for my daughter's birthday tomorrow. They're all sold out." Donna smiled kindly, shaking her head. "Oh, those things are like gold this year. My granddaughter's been begging for one too. You might want to try North Hill Mall. My cousin works there. Says they just got a new shipment in the back." "North Hill Mall?" I repeated. "That's like 40 minutes out of town." She shrugged, still smiling. "If it's for your kid, it's worth it." I thanked her, tossed some bills on the counter, and rushed back out. By the time I reached North Hill Mall, the sky had turned a heavy gray, the kind of winter cold that crawls under your coat and settles in your bones. I parked in the back lot and hurried inside. The toy store was chaos, parents arguing, kids whining, shelves half emptied. I scanned every aisle, heart hammering, the smell of plastic and stale air thick around me. There were dolls everywhere, but not the doll. "Excuse me," I asked one of the clerks, a bored-looking teenager with a name tag that read Sam. "Do you have any Daniela's Dream Edition dolls left?" He gave me a sympathetic look. "Lady, those sold out 2 weeks ago. You might find a knockoff at one of the discount stores down the highway." "Figures," I muttered under my breath, rubbing my temples. That's when I noticed him, someone standing near the end of the aisle, watching me. Tall, thin, wearing a brown jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked maybe mid-30s. When our eyes met, he gave a polite smile. "You looking for that Daniela doll, ma'am?" he asked. I froze for a beat. "Yeah, how'd you know?" He chuckled. "You've walked up and down this aisle 3 times now. Figured you weren't just browsing." I gave a nervous laugh. "Yeah, I've been all over town. My daughter's birthday's tomorrow, and I promised her I'd get it." He nodded slowly. "Well, you might be in luck. Name's Harold. I own a little discount shop over on Ridgefield Road. Picked up a few dolls last week for resale. I'm pretty sure one of them's that Dream Edition." My heart jumped. "Are you serious?" "Sure am," he said, grinning. "They're still in my truck, though. I can show you if you want." I hesitated. Something in me, something small but sharp, told me to be careful. I glanced toward the front of the store where the mall security guard, Rick, stood near the entrance. I'd seen him around before. "Hey, Rick," I called out, half joking, half testing the air. "You got any of those magic dolls in the Lost and Found?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Rick laughed, the kind that came from deep in his chest. "Wish I did, ma'am. Those things are harder to find than parking at Christmas." I managed a tired smile. "This gentleman here says he's got one in his truck. I'll be right back." Rick's eyes flicked toward Harold, studying him for half a second. Not hostile, just cautious. Then he nodded. "All right, ma'am. Just be careful. Parking lot's been sketchy lately after dark." "Thanks, Rick," I said, and followed Harold out through the sliding glass doors. The parking lot was nearly empty, the orange lights buzzing weakly above a sea of wet asphalt. Most shoppers had already gone home. The air had that sharp metallic chill that stings your lungs. I pulled my coat tighter around me. Harold's truck sat way out near the back under a single flickering lamppost. Why so far out? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. He chuckled. Easier to load stuff. Plus, no one dings your doors out here. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Makes sense. He opened the back door of the truck with a squeal of old metal. Inside were several cardboard boxes, all taped shut. He started rummaging through them, muttering under his breath. I know I had one left. Somewhere. I shifted my weight from foot to foot, watching my breath fog in the cold air. Then he stopped. Ah, here we go, he said, turning slightly. I took a step closer and everything went black. A sharp chemical smell filled my nose. A rough hand pressed a damp cloth over my mouth. I tried to scream, but the sound barely made it past my throat. My limbs went heavy. The last thing I saw before the world slipped away was Harold's cold, empty smile. When I woke, I was lying on a cold metal floor. My wrists and ankles were bound with something tight and rough. The air reeked of gasoline and sweat. Good morning, sunshine. Harold's voice drawled from somewhere in the dark. Panic flared in my chest. What do you want from me? My voice cracked, trembling. He crouched beside me, shining a flashlight into my face. His eyes were dull, dead things, like he hadn't seen another human being in years, just targets. You know, he said quietly, I get moms like you all the time. Desperate, running around trying to make their kids happy. You'd be shocked how many follow a stranger just for a toy. Tears burned down my face. Please, just let me go. I have a daughter. She's only 7. He smiled faintly. That's sweet. I've got 2 of my own. You know how it is, bills, birthdays, never enough money. So I make mine by selling folks like you. I stared at him, shaking. You're lying. He leaned closer, his breath hot and sour. You'll see soon enough. I started sobbing, thrashing uselessly against the ropes. He stood up, muttering to someone else I couldn't see, a second voice moving in the shadows. Then, sirens, faint at first, but growing louder. Shit, Harold shouted, slamming his fist against the van wall. The whole vehicle shuddered. How the hell? The van swerved hard. I felt the tires screech, the sudden stop slamming me against the metal floor. Before I could even breathe, a voice boomed from outside. Police! Put your hands where we can see them. Gunshots cracked through the night. The doors burst open. Hands, gloved, firm, grabbed me, pulling me out into the blinding blue and red light. My eyes burned. Voices shouted over each other. We got her. She's alive! It didn't feel real. Like I'd fallen out of a nightmare and into another world. One where I could finally breathe. At the police station later, an officer sat across from me, his tone soft but steady. Your friend from the mall, Rick, he saw you leave with that guy. Said something didn't feel right, so he followed you in his car. When he saw you get dragged into the van, he called it in and tailed them till backup arrived. I broke down right there, sobbing. He'd saved my life. Rick came by that night, still in uniform, his face tired but warm. You all right, ma'am? He asked gently. I don't even know how to thank you, I whispered. He shook his head. You don't have to. I got a little girl too. Couldn't just watch that happen. The next morning, before Lily even woke up, my phone rang. It was Rick again. Sorry to call this early, he said, his voice lighter this time. But I thought you'd want to know. One of the store managers found a Daniela dream doll in the back storage room. Said you could come pick it up. I couldn't stop crying. When Lily unwrapped that doll that morning, she squealed so loud it made me laugh for the first time in days. Rick stopped by that evening. I made spaghetti simple and warm and insisted he stay. He smiled across the table. Guess we both kept our promises, huh? It's been 15 years since that night. I still think about it sometimes, not with fear, but with gratitude. For Rick, for the second chance I got. I still have that doll. Lily keeps it in her room, its hair a little frayed, its dress faded with time. And every time I see it, I remember. No matter how dark the world can get, sometimes it only takes one person paying attention. One act of kindness to save a life.